The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we are about to take you higher. Broadcasting from the Rocky Mountains of Colorado to you listening around the world. This is Spaced Out Sunday with host Tessa Nicole Thomas. You can follow Tessa on our Facebook page at Spaced Out Radio, on Twitter at TessaTNT, and you can subscribe to her YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio for the archive. But we break on command 'cause women rule the world. Buckle up, space travelers. Let the countdown begin.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's time to go for a ride with host Tessa Nicole Thomas.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go.
Good evening, Spaced Out Radio. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on our Rocky Mountain High, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 419.9 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, November 11th, Monday, November 12th for those of you on the East Coast and beyond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. I hope you guys had a rockin' weekend and an awesome day and an even better evening. And I am your host, TessaTNT, and I am live tonight broadcasting from beautiful Bayfield, Colorado. We are 150,000 strong nightly on Spaced Out Radio Network, spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, as well as Deep Talk Radio, which you can find at deeptalkradio.com. Don't forget to head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, where you can peruse the Spaced Out Radio store and read the Encounter Online dealing with everything strange, paranormal, and odd. So tonight I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight we are joined by Jason Mathis, and we're going to be talking about the Coral Castle, conspiracies, and other mysteries going on around us in our world today. Jason Mathis grew up in Arizona and encountered his first UFO witness, his aunt and uncle, whom took 2 photos of 2 white disc-shaped craft flying somewhere over the Alaskan landscape. This led to Jason seeking out Stanton Frieden to show the photos and discuss them. It all branched out from there. Jason was quoted as saying in one interview, he investigates various subjects from the paranormal to the conspiratorial and everything in between in his spare time. He's a full-time working single father. He's witnessed many personal paranormal and supernatural events, some with witnesses and some without. From time slips to the Mandela effect, he has no explanation for what is going on, and all he can do now is, out of the many thousands of reported similar cases or experiences, something real is happening, and it's not just a forgetful memory of a few million, nor a few million being taught the wrong thing by so many teachers for so many years. He does not expect those explanations. Events like like these need to be documented at the very least. Collection of real evidence is another entire matter. The research community must come together if they are to fight the forces within trying to dismantle, confuse, and endanger our fellow colleagues. He thinks there are more skeptics in the field now than there was in the past, which is a good thing. Hey, Jason, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks. As you were saying that, I have to say, in honesty in radio, let's kill that bio. I hate it. Oh, my God. I'm sorry. I do. We were just discussing that. I think I wrote that just for more of a specific kind of show that we did. And it's funny, speaking, you talk about your tinfoil. Well, I'm watching Mork and Mindy, and Mork just came in with a huge ball of tinfoil. So there you go.
Heck yeah. Pass it around.
Oh, my gosh. Tinfoil, what are we going to do?
Yeah, wear your tinfoil hats. That's really going to protect you. I don't know. I might have some more layers of some different metals going on there. Maybe some unobtainium.
Oh, Mr. I would like to know. I would like to ask George now. What is unobtainium? Please tell me. I mean, is it something we can't obtain?
Right. That's what it sounds like.
Oh, I can think of a few things. So. Oh, Lordy. So what would you like to talk about? Coral Castle? I heard you talk earlier.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, and I figured we'd kick it off with that, and then we'd move on to some other things. And I think, what do you think about opening up the phone lines early and having people, call in throughout the show?
Oh, that's fine with me.
Okay, so if you guys would like to call in with any conspiracies or anything that's on the top of your mind that is somewhat out of our world, give us a call at 970-335-9596. That's 970-335-9596, and you can call on Skype or your cell phone or whatever you'd like. All right, so Coral Castle in Homestead, Florida. Was that the original place, or is that where he had moved it to?
The original place was, I believe, in Florida City. And I think he built it for about a year, maybe a year and a half or so. Then he decided to move it, as he said, because the land wasn't quite right. And at the time, nobody knew what he meant. And who we're talking about is Edward Leedskalnin. He was born in Latvia, forget what year. A good book is called Coral Castle. It's by Rusty McClure. It's Mcclure. It came out in, I think, at the tail end of 2009 or 2010. And he really goes into depth about, I think, a lot of the backstory with Edward Leedskalnin, because he came from Latvia, and at the time, I believe it was under communist rule. And as the story goes, he was probably came from a family of stonemasons, because as he built Coral Castle by himself with no help and in the dark by lantern light. And a lot of people find that difficult to believe even now in the 21st century. And he started this, I believe, in 1921 or 22, his construction of it. And in the book by Rusty is 52 affidavits that are signed by people who knew Edward Leedskalnin, stating, yeah, he really did, build it by himself. Or at certain times he would demonstrate how he would move blocks, but a lot of people think that he didn't show everything he did. So there's a lot of speculation. I mean, it even goes to him levitating stones and a lot of far-out theories.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like you were saying earlier, the way he was able to do these right angles working with coral. I mean, it's pretty difficult with the density of it as well as the porousness of the material.
Well, and it's very structurally sound. It actually survived, I think it was Hurricane Andrew in 1992. It was one of the only things left standing around. So, and when you first go there, it's he has made a sign in concrete and coral, and on it he inscribed, "You will be seen an unusual accomplishment." Many of the little slot you can drop in a dime through. And then the iron door is still there, and you go up and you follow the instructions, ring the bell twice. If you rang it more than twice, he wouldn't come to the door. He had very explicit instructions when you would come and visit his castle, and he would give tours back then. And when people would try to sneak in on him or catch him working at night, he would somehow know, and he would quit, and he would wait till people would, leave or give up. Nobody could catch him actually working full-blown on the castle all those years.
And Dell's asking, where can we go for pics? I would go, what I do, Google.com. Yeah, Coral Castle. And you can look up images, like go under images, and it'll pull up all kinds of images. And he's got some really amazing structures, as far as housing and also decorative.
He's got the world's biggest Valentine. It's a big Valentine heart table. He's got the state of Florida as a table. He's got rocking chairs and beds, kind of like the, I don't want to say the Three Little Bears, but a lot of people would imagine his family if he had one. He has different phases of the moon. He has, I think, 2 obelisks. I'm pronouncing that right there. And he actually experimented in very early radio. When you visit Coral Castle, you can actually see some of the copper wire that he ran from one of the structures to the top of his tower. And he was even visited by some people in the government early on, because, you have to think in those days, are they cohorting with Russia? Is it a spy? Radio's fairly new. It's, early to mid-20s. Not your everyday person is working with radio. So he did a lot of experiments in electricity, even made his own electricity with a flywheel that you still can see today. But unfortunately, shortly after he passed away, his place was looted. So we really don't know what was taken. So we'll get into, how he passed away later on, but that's the Reader's Digest version of what happened to a lot of his tools.
So a lot of
them there.
Yeah, and a lot of them are missing, you're saying?
Yeah, like I said, when he passed away, nobody knew. He just left a sign that said going to the hospital, and it wasn't until I think 2 or 3 weeks after that the neighbors figured out that, he died, and the hospital notified, at least somebody, obviously, and it was in the paper. So, but he died, I think, in 1952. But he worked on that castle for about from 1922 to about 1944 or 45. So he put in a good portion. He was only 5 feet.
25 years building the original structure, and then it took another 10 to rebuild once he moved?
Well, no, he built for about a year and a half in Florida City, and then he trucked everything from Florida City to Homestead. And when he did it, nobody knew how he got the stones, because one stone in Coral Castle is heavier than one stone of the pyramids, of the Great Pyramid. So, and that's true. So wrap your mind around that one. So what he would do, he hired one of these truck drivers, and Ed figured out that you had to have solid rubber tires to hold the weight of the stone. Otherwise, air tires would pop. When he would go to load it, before he would load, he would tell the coach or the driver, come back in 10 minutes or whatever, and I'll have it loaded. And the guy couldn't figure out how, but he would leave. And he'd come back 10 minutes later, and there the stone would be loaded up on the flatbed in the back. And the guy couldn't figure out how he did it. And I think that's one of the things in Rusty's book, is somebody's statement to that affidavit of that story goes into a little more detail of how he actually moved these stones from Florida City to Homestead. And when you actually go to Coral Castle, you can actually see where he cut out the stones right out of the ground. It's pretty well preserved, but I think they sold off a lot of the original land surrounding it because he owned a lot of acreage. And looking from in the pictures in those days, it looks like looks like a castle out in the middle of the Floridian jungle.
Right.
Pretty wild. Looking. In one of the goofy, if people like the goofy '50s movies, they did the beginning shots of Coral Castle there called from a movie called The Wild Women of Wango or something like that. It was supposed to be some tribe of Amazon women ruling the moon.
Right.
So they shot it at Coral Castle, some of it. So that was interesting. But there's not that much footage, early footage of it anyway.
Well, yeah, and like you said, he was very secretive, his name being Edward Leedskalnin, and like you were saying, he was a really small guy, only 5 feet tall and 100 pounds, and he was a Latvian immigrant.
Yes.
And they're saying, this castle is like one of the most amazing structures, and it's built in terms of accomplishment. It's compared to Stonehenge, ancient Greek temples, and even the Great Pyramids. And, I was reading this thing earlier on the scientific side of it and how they're going to explain everything. And they're saying, well, this stuff was really porous and it was really lightweight, but that's not the case because some of the pieces weighed as much as 30 tons.
Yeah. How are you going to move that?
Right. They're like, somehow he was able to move them and set them into place without the assistance of modern machinery. Like, it was just a really great accomplishment. And it was like back in the day before all these, cranes and whatnot, lifters and such.
People should look up, if they have, well, I'm sure they do, look up online the 9 images for the 9-ton gate. And you look at this thing, especially old pictures from the 70s before they gated it off. What happened was this 9-ton gate, a child could push it with their pinky finger and it would rotate perfectly balanced. And I think it was rotated on a 1927 ball bearing from a Model T Ford, if I'm not mistaken. Details like that are in Coral Castle book by Rusty McClure. But either way, it broke in the late 70s or early 80s, and it took a whole crew to get this door off, and they couldn't get the balance on it right, and it never worked the same. They couldn't figure out how Ed had balanced it perfectly. It's 9 ton of coral stone that you can push with your pinky finger, and the old In Search Of has a picture of a kid going through it before it broke.
And they can't figure out, how to fix that. It's just amazing.
No, it's broken now. Yeah, it's you can't even get near it.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
I'm looking here, the construction of the Coral Castle, and it's estimated that 1,000 tons of coral rock were used in the construction of the walls and towers, and in addition to 100 tons of it were carved into furniture, like you were saying, and art objects. And they, kind of asterisk a list here. An obelisk he raised weighs 28 tons. The wall surrounding the Coral Castle stands 8 feet tall and consists of large blocks, which each weigh several tons. Large stone crescents are perched atop 20-foot high walls. A 9-ton swinging gate that moves at the touch of a finger guards the eastern wall. And the largest rock on property weighs an estimated 35 tons. And some stones are twice the weight of the largest blocks in the Great Pyramid at Giza. And this guy worked alone to do all this stuff. Like you were saying, he was very secretive, and it was between 1920 and 1940 to build the home originally called Rockgate Park in Florida City.
Yeah. What else had he built or carved in that's not really mentioned? I forget what it's exactly called. It has the sign right there when you go in, but it's right next to, well, he built a well out of coral, and he would cook over that well as well. And then he has a little contraption from an old Ford that he used to cook in, and kind of like it looks like a teardrop, but the tour guide was telling me he used to cook his meat in there. I'm like, all right, well, I suppose. But next to this thing is like it looks like a little confessional, but I think it had something to do with, like, if the kids got in trouble, it's like a timeout room, and it's like a little love seat made out of coral. It's kind of in how he carved it out. It's like a little wall, and it's a cozy little spot. I don't know. I forget what it's called, but it's that spot there, and then you have on the other side like a big triangle coral, and you can actually push it go around. It goes around in circles, and I think they did this on the TV show. It was on History Channel. They would explore like Weird America, and they went to Coral Castle, and they did this experiment with gravity and magnetics. You can look up the experiment, I'm sure, on YouTube, but the details escape me. But it was pretty interesting about how some people think Edward Leedskalnin used magnetics to move or levitate these coral stones into place.
Yeah, some say that, there's different things going on. Everybody's got to talk ish and make up their own stuff to rationalize it. Some are saying he used psychic powers to lift it with his mind.
Well,
and others are... Go ahead.
Well, I was only going to say, Edward wrote 3 little books, and one was on magnetic current, one was on the government, and one was on family. And I'm sure you could probably look at the titles or find the titles on the Coral Castle website. But basically, Edward didn't have the education to explain correctly his thoughts about, magnetics and electricity and how things work. Basically, from what I got from it, because he only had a 3rd grade education, mind you. Okay, so a guy with a third grade education built something as equal to the pyramid. So that's why I laugh when, serious scientists laugh and scoff at him. He's like, wait a minute. He's not an idiot savant, obviously. He just had poor education. What Edward believed was everything was magnetic. On some level was magnetic. Mm-hmm. The atoms were magnetic because what's bringing them together? Well, gravity or magnetics. So okay, going with that theory, plastic is in some form could be magnetic. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it. I'm not a scientist, but that's how he explains. That's how he explains it in his little book. Everything is magnetic, and all you got to do is figure out the frequency to that, what level it's on, and bam, there you go, and you can move it around basically, or manipulate the object. That's what I remember, and that's what I got out of reading his very archaic way of explaining magnetics, and it's like a 3rd grader wrote it. So if you try to read it, it's going to be a challenge.
Right. But, well, yeah, and I don't know. It's a shame that these things were stolen from the property, so we can't really see what he was using to manipulate these stones and such. We see like a fraction of what he was using, but just like with Tesla, like a majority of his work was taken and there was only like 3 crates left. Like we can't see everything he was working with and go from there. We got to kind of hypothesize and figure out what's actually going on.
Well, some people claim they saw strange lights coming from his property at night, kind of like a blowtorch light, I would suppose, like a bright white light or a bluish light. I can't say that's substantiated or not, a lot of wives' tales. And poor Edward, he was actually beat up by, they don't know if it was thugs or, some people think it was the government. I don't think it was those people, but he became even, I think, a little more reclusive after that. More careful about who he toured with the castle, because he would have hours that he would actually post the hours at his home or in the paper when he would run ads for Coral Castle. I will be home between the hours of 2 and 6, and then I will be out at the market from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. So he gave virtually his whole schedule right there in the paper. Early ads for Coral Castle, he would say something like 25,000 have visited Rock Gate Park in Homestead, Florida. And people would say, well, wait a minute, 25,000 people on this little, dusty dirt road back then. Where does he get his numbers? So a lot of people think he embellished, some of the early numbers. But, hey, that's okay. That's good advertising. Whatever gets somebody there. And for 10 cents, you can't beat it. So, but the reason why, well, we'll get into Agnes if you want. That's his little Sweet 16 that he is affiliated with Coral Castle. If people don't know, the story goes, I think when Ed was about 26, he was engaged to a girl who was 16. Well, she told him, she broke off the engagement. She told him, you're too old and you're too poor. Can you imagine being too old at 26?
Yeah, they were engaged, but then she changed her mind because of that.
So I think after a while he just ran with the story because it was good publicity. But some people say that they actually tracked Agnes down in later years and invited her to go see Coral Castle. And it was reported that she said something like, I didn't want anything to do with them then, and I don't want anything to do with them now.
Yeah. Yeah, and the story goes... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, go right ahead.
Well, it says the story goes that he built it after being jilted by his fiancée, who changed her mind about marrying him because he was too old and too poor. And after wandering the U.S. and Canada for several years, Ed settled in Florida City for health reasons. He had been diagnosed with tuberculosis, and we were talking about that earlier as well. He basically kind of healed himself.
Yeah, he had a table in the over there right by... You might actually be able to see it. It's right next to the beds of Coral Castle and the little chairs. But there's a little section right there that he used to lay on that table. And also he used to lay on the ground. He used to do it both ways. I think Rusty said in the book. And about 3 or 4 hours a day. And he said that the vitamin D and then whatever properties was in the stone or the magnetics, somehow it created a magnetic field that he laid in, and that's what he gave credit to curing his tuberculosis. Now, a lot of people think it's Mrs. Mosier. Now, Mosier was the real estate lady, the guy that he bought Coral Castle property from. His name was Mosier, and so a lot of people think that it was this guy's wife that nursed him back to health, because when he first came to Florida City, he was very malnourished and he was very sick with tuberculosis. And Mr. Mosier picked him up and basically, who are you and what are you doing down here? And he says, well, I'm looking for a plot of land. And so he took Ed back home, introduced him to his wife, and he stayed with him till he got better. Now, here's another interesting story that came out in recent years, recent being, within the last 10 I heard, that a lot of people think that Ed had a crush on the Mosier's daughter, and that could be the Sweet 16 and not Agnes. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was an interesting thing that I had read. But either way, after he got better, the real estate guy, Mosier, says, I'll sell you some land and anything you want. So basically, Ed picked the worst possible land in Florida that you could pick. And the guy said, what do you want this for? He's like, this is perfect. Ed's like, this is what I want. And they actually cut him a deal, and he sold it to him. And right away is when Ed began working. And first reports were from, of course, Mr. and Mrs. Mosier, of him out there cutting the coral out and building things down there in Florida City, and just, what are you doing? And, building the castle.
Yeah. And it says here he began building his coral home in 1920, and then 1936, when a new planned subdivision of homes threatened his privacy, he moved his entire home and its many tons of coral 10 miles to Homestead, where he completed it and where it still stands as a tourist attraction today. His feat of engineering has remained a mystery all these years because, incredibly, no one saw it. And he was a secretive man, and he worked at night, like you said, by lantern. And so there are no credible witnesses on how this small, frail man was able to move these huge blocks. He even, like we said earlier, moved the entire structure on a borrowed truck.
Yeah,
but they don't know how he got it off the vehicle either. They're like, how the heck did this happen? And lots of weird stories have been told and bizarre theories proposed to explain the Coral Castle. And since no witnesses can dispute any of them, they're all worthy of consideration. And then it shows a few theories.
Yeah. Now, there's people that have stated also in the book, and I think on certain YouTube videos about Coral Castle, there have been people, my mom was there, she used to say their science teacher used to take them to see Edward Leedskalnin, and he'd show them how he'd move the stones, and he'd get them on the pulley and rollers and all this. And then a lot of people would say, well, yeah, maybe he would show, the old-fashioned way. He wouldn't show, he wouldn't give away the secrets to levitation, so to speak. I can't, like I said, I can't go that far in the levitation. I'd have to, I know magnetics and certain, you get the light rail trains and things like that, but, you're talking about floating coral.
Mm-hmm.
You're more apt to see an airplane staying still in the sky.
I actually saw that once. It was really weird. It really blew my mind.
Right. I'm just, I know, but I'm just saying.
Well, Trip in the chat room, he was saying from June 1st, 2018, the balanced stone gate that, despite its weight, would easily swing open with a strong breeze or a push of a finger. How it worked remained a mystery until 1986, when it stopped moving. When the gate was removed, it was revealed that it rotated on a metal shaft and rested on a truck bearing. Ed worked alone using basic tools like picks, winches, ropes, and pulleys. Ed himself said that he did it using hard work and the principles of leverage. The tools he used to quarry the rock are on display at the Coral Castle, and several old photos depict the large tripods, pulleys, and winches he used to move the blocks. Though the quarried stone slabs are large, they are actually lighter than they appear because the rock is porous. And that's what I read earlier in this. Well, here's the scientific facts to explain what's going on. Like, it's really porous material, so it's really light, but like they're saying, some of these are 30 tons, 25 tons, 10 tons each. Like,
well, cheese has holes in it. Does it make it any more lighter?
Right.
I mean, come on, that's such a stupid explanation. Well, the coral has holes, must be lighter. Oh, geez, please, come on.
Yeah, and, sometimes you see the little pieces that you can pick up by hand, and they are very light, and they seem like fragile. If you drop it, it's going to break. But, I mean, there are those large pieces that are basically impossible.
You can make a good knife spear and go spear fishing with a good piece of coral. Who are they kidding? I mean, it's strong and durable. Yeah, if I don't know. I've been there. I've seen it. I've examined it up close, and you have to wonder because some of those edges are really nice and smooth and rounded, and then some are nice and sharp. And what's interesting, he being Ed, when you go up the stairs to his little castle room, on the top there, on the left, he has his immigration number inscribed in the wall. And a lot of people think this is a secret code, which I find funny. You can read this on the internet and type in his immigration number, and people think it's the secret to the universe he's referring to, or whatever.
Right.
But why he did that is, back in those days, he was a Latvian immigrant, new to America. Here, World War I just ended. We're about to go into World War II in a few years, sort of. We're a good decade away. But either way, it's dangerous for a guy like that in America in the 20s. So to him, always have your papers ready. And what better way to put it is inscribe it right on my home.
Right.
Makes sense. It makes sense.
Well, Tripp was also saying, though Ed worked alone, he was not a reclusive hermit. He had friends who he saw often. One man, Orville Irwin, was not only a longtime friend of Ed, but also a building contractor with a deep knowledge of construction techniques. Irwin wrote in 1996 a book with the inspiring title, Mr. Cant is Dead, the story of the Coral Castle, and in it he explains through photographs, drawings, and schematics how it was done. Irwin pours cold water on the paranormal theories that unknown energies, alien technology, or levitation built the castle. In fact, he finds such theories an insult to the hard work and integrity of his friend. And he goes to say, back in the days when Ed started carving out his original stones, his was a generation who knew accomplishments by the sweat of the brow. It wasn't mysticism, but hard work, and this is how Ed really accomplished the massive project. And then it has the link, livescience.com, which I was saying earlier, the scientific one that says this explains it all, was saying.
Yeah, and there's also another fellow in Michigan who did something similar. I think it's called the Michigan Stonehenge. I think he's on YouTube. And he did the leverage, pulling up the stones with the pulleys and the old-fashioned way. And he's another one of these, bust the theory, rain on your parade kind of guy. And
Right.
even if that is really how Coral Castle was built, hey, great. My question is then let's build more solid structures like that.
Yeah. Especially in these
mean,
hurricane regions where everything gets blown away and people are trying to rebuild their lives in the same location, even though they know what horrific natural disasters happen, they continue to rebuild in the same place like it's not going to happen before. Basically how you define being insane. You try the same thing over and over again and get the same outcome.
Hey, you know what? If I had the money, I'd buy a Coral Castle. I'd live there. God, it's awesome.
For sure.
It's so nice around there. Now the funny part is when you go, I don't know if they have it now because it's been about 8 years, but then they'd have this little cardboard cutout of Ed, and you push a button, and Ed supposedly would narrate, the whole story as he'd go through. And but he had a Spanish accent, which I found kind of funny. Like it's not a lot being an accent, but good try. But it's a nice area, and the gift shop, and we could see the tools and everything. It's I call it the eighth wonder of the world, and it should be on there. It should be on the map bigger than what it is.
Yeah, and then some people just try to downplay certain things. But like I was saying, there are a list of theories that different people are talking about. How communities chitter-chatter and gossip between each other. And one story says that some curious neighbors did see how Ed moved the stones. They say he placed his hands on the stone to be lifted and sang, and somehow this levitated the great rocks. Others suggested that he mastered unseen powers and could move the blocks. When asked how he accomplished the feat, Ed said he used leverage and gravity, similar to how Egyptians built the pyramids. He also suggested he had found ways to manipulate the magnets and electricity. Was Ed being deceptive when he talked about magnetism and electricity, trying to make this accomplishment more mystical and mysterious than it actually was? Had he merely found a very clever way to manipulate the great stones with levers and pulleys? We may never know the answer, because Ed took his secrets with him to the grave in 1951.
Yep.
But, talking about the pyramids and stuff, there's so many amazing things that were found there. Not only were they able to manipulate these large stones and take them across hundreds of thousands of miles to get to, where they got the stone to, where they were in the desert. And there's also these, historic light bulb thingies and circuits and batteries and generators and such that should not have existed back in the day. It's like, how'd they do that? Well,
the thing is this, if they had batteries and generators and things, I would say that they had motorized carriages too somehow. look, if not, then carriages could have been used to move some of those stones. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The landscape in those days could have been totally different. I'm not a geologist or geographer, or a geologist either.
For that matter, yeah. But you see how they use logs or whatever, and they just kind of push the stone, along the logs and line it up one after the other. Could you imagine doing that for thousands of miles and even taking across the ocean and stuff? Like, how do you even get it onto the ship? I mean,
look, this is why we need Jack Mackerel on the air, because he had a very good explanation for this, And he went on a tirade with me one time for like 20 minutes about this one specific point about getting these stones. He's like, you know how much manpower it would take? Oh, yeah, 40,000 guys out there in a freaking desert sweating. You know how much water? And then you got to, how much water you got to give these guys, and you got to feed these guys, and then who's feeding those guys? I mean, it gets ludicrous,
mm-hmm.
I think. It's...
We should crash call him, and he won't even expect it unless he's listening right now.
Oh God, you know how pissed he would be if he found out he was on the air.
Well, I'm all the way up here in Colorado, so I'm safe till I go back down to Phoenix.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I'd have to leave the state.
I know a place you can go. It's in the southern portion of Colorado, not too far.
Oh, really? Well, I might have to go there. Reserve me a room somewhere.
Right.
Call him. I tell him we can use a voice disguiser. You think that he... I've never seen a person act like he does. I said, what, do you want it or something? He says, no. I said, okay, then what's the problem?
Of course. That's a person who's wanted or running from the mob or something would say. No. That's so funny. He cracks me up. He's a really good guy. I hope he's doing better with his health issues and such, because, God, he's been through so much already, and at least he caught this one early and was able to remitigate it, but, yeah.
Well,
poor guy.
You made a good point. I didn't mean go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was done.
Oh, well, he made a good point. He said, I was watching, what did he say, one of the doctor shows, Dr. Phil. I was watching Dr. Phil, and Dr. Phil had a girl in there who was dead for 7 minutes. No heartbeat. He goes, I had her beat. I had no heartbeat for 51 minutes. And he says, how come I'm not on Dr. Phil? How come no one's knocking on my door? He goes, I didn't see God. I didn't cross the other side. I didn't see Elvis. My grandma didn't visit me. He says, the only thing I heard was I was aware what was around me. He says, and I think your hearing's the last to go when you die. He says, because I heard everything that the nurses and doctors were saying. And that's the only paranormal thing that I've, he won't even call it paranormal. So he, and he's serious, but he says, Jason, when you've died 6 times and you don't see what other people see, what am I to think? And he's got a point.
Well, I was telling the story to a friend the other day about how many times he had died, and I said 15 minutes, but that could be my numerological dyslexia or whatever. But he was saying how there was nothing on the other side but darkness, but he could hear what was going on, and this person was like, well, that's the other side. Like, he was still there. He was still witnessing it through hearing and stuff. It just wasn't, all these stories you hear from other people. There was a light, my family came, or God said it wasn't my time, or all this other shenanigans. But there was still something on the other side. He was still able to hear what was going on. It was just dark at the moment. So it was a portion, but not what he expected.
Well, the first time he died, in 2006, he got in a really bad auto wreck. He was coming home from work, and he got hit head-on by another car, because this other car was drag racing another car. And anyways, he hit him head-on, and the doctor said if he didn't have as strong as a neck and legs that he did, he would have been dead for sure. And as a matter of fact, they got everything together in an evidence baggie, because they expected him to die. Even had the death certificate out, and more to the point, he said, the only thing that I saw, he goes, well, I know I died. He says, I get up. He says, I see a light out my window. He goes, and then I hear my name being called out in the hallway. He says, but I look back and I see my body laying on the hospital bed. And I said, I don't want to die. I'm not coming out there in the hallway, because he said it was a dark hallway and he could hear the nurses and people calling him. He says, the next thing I know, I'm in my body. Now, that's the only time that he's ever told me about anything being witnessed out of his body and being conscious of it. After that, like I said, it's all black and darkness to him.
Yeah, don't go out into the dark hallway. Who knows what's out there?
Yeah.
Could be the hellhounds or the dark-eyed children or who knows what.
Robert Johnson, the hellhound on my trail. Mm-hmm.
Stay away from the dark. Stay near the light. And it's cool that the light was at the window. But yeah, it's interesting. Life and death, like life in general. There's so many crazy things that happen. Yeah. And, we're constantly saying truth is stranger than fiction, which it really, really is.
We got off on a tangent there. I didn't mean to go off at Coral Castle. I know we got a few minutes left in the hour. So if you want to finish up Coral Castle,
I'm over here looking at these cool pictures, and he's actually, got some really cool structures built, and a lot of them look like planets. One looks like Saturn. One could be the moon. And then, there's the crescents. That could be a moon as well. Maybe that's the sun over there. Who knows?
He even built a telescope, and it has the crosshairs still in it. And if you look through it, it's directly in line with the North Star perfectly.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's to the left of the planets. I forget, but it's a little tall, skinny structure.
Yeah, with the hole in the top.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Yeah,
I don't have my computer accessible right now, so.
And it looks like there's a couple of them. One is more of a, rectangular feature, which actually is skinny at the top and it goes wider as it goes down, with a hole in the top of it. And then there's another one that is more oddly shaped, and then at the top, it's got like a wing and then a point, and then
one of them was oddly shaped on the right side. And the story about that one, when I was in Florida, the tour guide was there, and he was telling me he was talking to the guy that was actually there when Ed was constructing that particular obelisk. And he said the first one he made, when he cut it out, he went to raise it, and as he raised it, when it fell over, it broke. And he was like, oh, man. So he did the second one, and as he carved it out, he just couldn't get it right on that side. He just decided to leave it. He goes, oh, screw it. And he kept going. And we had a good laugh about that, because that just shows the human part of it. You're building this huge thing, and you're worried about one side being fatter than the other, and you just decide, you know what, forget it. I've come this far, I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah. Well, the top looks pretty symmetrical, but like you're saying, on that one side, it kind of pivots out more than the other.
Yeah. He was just like,
Moving on to bigger and greater things. He made these cool crescent-looking chairs and stuff, and man, it would be cool if, he had a diary. If he does, and they're just keeping it hidden, like just what exactly he was trying to accomplish with these different features, these different shapes and such. And it's pretty cool how it is like symmetrical with the sky, like you're saying. The North Star comes through this one. And at the entrance, all that was
found was $3,800. When he died, I think all that was found was $3,800 in cash that he had hidden away
for a rainy day.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's pretty good money for 1951.
Mm-hmm.
Charging 10 cents a pop, all those years. And plus, I'm sure, I know that they did modeling shoots in the 50s there too as well. A lot of the newspaper articles they have in the book by Ruster McClure. I think, like I said, that's the only really good book in recent years about Coral Castle that goes into it in depth. And you could climb back even more. His family history was even more interesting. If I had my notes on me, God, we could get into that, because his family and the war in Latvia and everything that was going on there, and what Ed was experiencing, I think shaped him into what he became, and how he built Coral Castle. Like I said, I think he came from a family of stonemasons. So you had to have a craft. You had to be useful, I think, in those days.
Yeah, and people have certain beliefs and ways to learn and things that they've learned, and then, all of a sudden this guy's doing this, which goes back, if he is doing the levers and pulleys and these triangular, wood structures and such, does date back to Egyptian days and things that, as a kid growing up that I'd see in pictures, moving these huge stones with, a bunch of people at the end of the rope pulling them over a bunch of logs. That could be how he did it, but the quickness that he did it and how he did it, not only where he was loading the stones from the original place and then unloading them at the next place, you had to see, as a person moving these things, you had to see some sort of structures or something that would somewhat explain what he was doing. And it's cool how at this entrance he has it little concrete things, entrance, you will be seeing unusual accomplishments, and then once you go in, notice, be careful, anything you do on these premises is at your own risk, and it's signed Ed at the bottom.
Yeah. What was I going to say? I just had a thought on my head.
Just move your head around a little bit, you'll find it.
Oh, Lordy. But the iron door is still there. And on the iron door, I don't know if you see it anywhere in front of you, but he has the sun and then the moon and then a line going down and then a circle at the end of it. And nobody can quite figure out what it means. It's a very interesting illustration on the old iron rusted door.
You're going to have to look that up, because it's not in this article. Yeah. It shows all the coral structures, but it doesn't show the iron door. So
I think if you go to YouTube and look up Coral Castle Part 3 or something, that's like a 14-minute video I did back 8 years ago. And I actually videotaped some of the tour guide explaining everything, and it gives a good shot and good video of the place if you haven't been there. So, and Billy Idol actually shot a video there, Sweet 16. That's what his song's about, Edward and his long-lost love.
Oh, poor Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
Unrequited love. The story of the ages.
I remember now what I was going to say. Edward was seen shortly before he started construction, and when he was searching for his plot of land, he was seen dowsing around Florida, around Homestead and Florida City down there. With dowsing rods. Mm-hmm. Going around town with dowsing rods. When people would ask him what he was doing, he'd say, "I'm searching for the perfect plot of land." And they're like, "Well," because I think they attribute dowsing to trying to find water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do that with wooden sticks, but with copper wire, that's more spiritual.
Yeah, but that's what he had copper. I guess there were copper, but that's what they said he was doing. He was down there,
It also picks up on magnetic fields.
Okay, well there you go. See, forgot about that. I thought they just were trying to use them to find water.
Yeah, generally you'll use like a hickory or willow or applewood stick, and you'll have a little fork where you have your hands, and then it'll point out straight, and once it starts bobbing erratically, which my Granny Flora Evans, she taught me how to douse with wood. And that's the first introduction I had to that. I was probably like 6 years old when she taught me that. And then, let's see, how old was I? Floyd 6, so I was about 33 years old. And that was my first experience with the copper dowsing rods, and it's like spirits can more easily manipulate it because of the magnetic energy or whatever they're using. but you also can find like different things with magnetic fills, granite or crystal or whatever else that's in the ground that can make it ping or whatnot. But spirits can easily manipulate that to communicate with you. And I'm looking at this, it looks like an iron door, and it's got like the sun in the middle and a line that goes Earth, and then it goes through the sun, and then it goes up to this planet, and who knows what the heck that is.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
And it says ring bell.
Yeah, ring bell twice. Yeah. Something like that, yeah.
That's interesting. Makes me wonder what that little tiny planet in the corner is.
Those chairs are comfortable, though. Looking at them, you don't think so? Oh, no. You can rock back and forth in them, and, you know, all it's missing is your smoking jacket and a pipe, and you'll be set, you know?
Right. Let's see. Well, we have a minute until we go to break. Let's see. We actually have about 15 seconds.
Only 25 miles southwest of Miami. So,
Man.
I put it on your bucket list. Y'all got to go see it. It's really fun.
Yeah, and I lived in Miami as a kid, and I'm like, man, my dad didn't even take me to do that. All right, well, we're going to our first commercial break. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these messages.
Looking for nighttime adventure? Old school radio that delves into everything out of the norm? Then check us out at Spaced Out Radio. This is Dave Scott. Every Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we're going to take you on a wild ride ranging from conspiracies to true crime and every ghost, alien, and Sasquatch story in between. We're always live, and we're always interactive with you. So join us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, we own the night.
Hey, guess what? You can now get your brand new Spaced Out Radio swag at spacedoutradio.com. We've brought the store back with all new items for you to pick out and pick up for yourself, your family, or friends. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, we got it all. All you have to do is head to our website and click on Store. Choose what you want and it's shipped to you. The Spaced Out Radio store is right there for you. Come shop with us at spacedoutradio.com. Then we can own the night together.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
On the first Tuesday of every month, I encourage you to come along for a journey with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You. Together, we will take a look at how to access the highest expression of yourself and change your life. Consciousness, ET contact, health, and wellness, we can talk about it all. So come along for a spiritual ride with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
If you're heading to Vancouver, make sure you stop by the official bar of Spaced Out Radio, the Moose Vancouver. It's the place to party in YVR. At the corner of Nelson and Granville, the Moose Vancouver is always up to speed with a kitchen staff that serves great food. All food on the menu, $6.95 to $8.95. There's a reason the Moose Vancouver is recognized as one of the hottest spots on the West Coast. Get your horns up for the Moose Vancouver.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch. Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there. This is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You can follow Tessa on Twitter at TessaTNT, on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, back to Spaced Out Weekend host, Tessa Nicole Thomas.
Here's a sound again, voices dancing in.
So we're going into our second hour, and this song is a very, very mellow. It kind of makes me want to take a nappy. But we have Jason on the line, and we're talking about different things, Coral Castle, and other conspiracies and mysteries. Welcome back, Jason.
Thanks. Oh, man. I have to say, I want to just bring it up, date on current events, not necessarily, conspiracy, but I have to say, and this will get some people going, I can't stand the hate that's going on in politics right now. I don't care who you like, who you hate. I mean, just the stuff that they've said about Trump. You got to be kidding me. Come on. Would you say that about your own mother? I just can't
Trump's
believe
not my mother.
Right, but I'm just saying,
Well,
they got you got Kathy Griffin, mocking, holding his head all bloody.
Yeah, she's paying for that royalty, royally with the royalties. She's gotten assassinated basically for doing that. Different things different people had different humors about certain things with Trump, but she took it a little too far.
But it's just, look, Love them, hate them, that's that way with every politician and people always forget. Why y'all forget? Don't y'all remember Egan G.W. Bush Jr.'s car when he was inaugurated? I think it was at 2000. People were pissed.
No, I wish I did.
People were mad. They were egging his car. 2004. I mean, it's the same thing. You can go back and listen to. Here's a fun fact. Go back and listen to an old Mae Brussel or an old, news show from 1968 or 70. They're still talking about immigration. They're still talking about gun control. They're still talking about the same crap they're talking about now.
It was funny. I came home from work the other day, and I had actually turned it on to MSN News, and I came home, and my roommate was watching it. He's actually at rehab right now, trying to get clean for different reasons. And he was like, have you seen this? Like, all these immigrants trying to come across, and all these little kids are holding their little iPads or iPhones, and they're playing games and stuff. And so then I made a joke, which might be cruel because, they do go through a lot getting here, going through the desert and all these other things. There's no water for miles and miles or whatnot. Except for if they're on the roadways, I'm sure they have access, but you're not supposed to really drink the water in Mexico. Like one of my almost mom-in-laws was like, I told you not to order the water. I'm like, I'm sorry, I forgot. Like, that's what I drink. Give me a bottle of water. I don't freaking care. But he's like, why are they coming over here when they have these things? Like, they have the iPad, they have the iPhone. It looks like they have a good life. Like, what are they actually running from?
I think a lot of it's done. This is done to set up Trump, to provoke him to do something so they can point their fingers. It's a classic setup. They're playing chess. Nothing in politics is on accident. Look, here's a fun fact for you. Okay, this is in the congressional record. They started talking about this in 1915. They being the bankers, and God, I can't remember the actual guy's name. But actually, what happened was, all these bankers, Rothschilds and Warburgs, and they come together in about 1917, and they take a look at about 125 of the world's newspapers, and they figured out they only had to buy 25 of the world's newspapers to get control and hold of the national media, and that's what they did. So basically, you've had false news and the news being manipulated since the 1920s. So this idea of false news and fakery, it's nothing new. When people saying, oh my gosh, or they're waking up, oh Jesus, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, a lot of people laughed at the so-called conspiracy theorists or the researchers or the buffs. They were too busy laughing at it all. You can go bring that subject, UFOs to the, levitation to, ghosts, but more so in this field. And so, and then you have people saying, in Congress, well, national sovereignty was a good idea. We'll see in the next century, I'm paraphrasing, in the 21st century, that they're basically, stomping out nationalism. What's wrong with nationalism? Being proud of, the Constitution and things like this. In some circles, now that would be considered hate speech. It's just so backwards how everything has become. And a lot of people sit and wonder, how did it cut this way? What were we doing? Well, you were laughing is what you were doing. Had your head in the sand. So I don't particularly care, or I shouldn't say that, but feel bad for what's going on. Because people did it to themselves. And maybe that's mean to say. But I hope people had a good time laughing, and laughing at the conspiracy theories and these stories. The other day I saw Dave had up, do you think Hitler lived? Sure, yeah. He continued the Reich, man, in various different ways. I'm not talking like a racist thing, but I'm talking like the policies. You take the OSS became the CIA. Von Braun came over here, worked with us. I mean, they just brought the good guys over. And here's a conspiracy theory that the Nuremberg trials were just a show. I mean, people really have to dig into history to understand what's going on today. But we're too busy with our iPads and our phones in our hands and whatever else we're doing.
Yeah.
Sorry for that
people are
tirade,
saying,
I could
oh,
go
no
on
worries.
forever.
Well, people are saying, well, Trump couldn't make it to here because of what the weather was doing and blah, blah, blah. But, helicopters can operate to a certain extent at the Mount of Everest. They can't go all the way to the top because then they get the freezing or whatever of the rotors. But, let's make up another excuse to collude or whatever's going on. Like, you could have made it over here, but you'd rather be over here doing this. And, I don't know. Like, there's so many different strange things going on, and, I think my husband is even on the same page as, he's the president, he deserves a certain amount of respect. Well, I did not vote for this guy. I didn't vote for Hillary. I voted for somebody else that I knew was running. Like, people have this certain mind frame that there's either one person or the other. Well, that's really not the case. There's actually more people than two on this freaking presidential vote. If you pull your head out of your ass and you don't listen to the mainstream media and do your homework, you'll see there's other people out there that you can vote for president. It's not just the two main people that have the most money in their pockets. There's other places you can go.
A good book that really discusses, like, behind the scenes in the early 20th century from about, the time Woodrow Wilson got into presidency until about the 1960s. It's called FDR, My Exploited Father-in-Law. It's written by Curtis B., as in boy, Dahl, D-A-L-L. He was FDR's son-in-law, married to one of his daughters, I forget her name, but basically he was a banker in the 20s, and he brushed shoulders with guys like Bernard Baruch and the policymakers, and, the Republican and Democratic Party, they've been bought and paid for by the same people for, damn near over 100 years now. So people love to scream change. We want change. We want this. No. Look, if you want change, you're going to have to realize both parties are the same. And what's really going on is two factions are warring for control. Now, call that faction what you want. New World Order, Marshall Applewhite and his gang, I don't care. But that's the first thing people have to realize. And you don't need to be an expert to figure it out. And it is right that what you say, there are other candidates you vote for. Bring those people in. Because every American president has royal blood ties.
Well, yeah, and we were talking about this yesterday, and I think it was Max in the chat room or whatnot, and talking about how voting doesn't really matter. I think to a certain extent that's true as far as when it comes to the presidential vote, we can all vote in one way, but the Electoral College will come in and say, no, we're going to vote this way. Even though the majority rules, we're going to say this person should be in. So with the presidential thing, it is a totally different thing because you have the Electoral College. When it comes to, certain random events in your local community and you're voting on different things, that's important. Go out and vote on things that are in your community and make it what you want it to be. When they were trying to legalize marijuana, first year I didn't go out and vote and it failed. Second year I went out and voted, and a lot of people did as well because they saw, how it worked. Well, it didn't pass this year. I'm going to go out and vote for it because I believe in it. Medical marijuana, recreational, whatever, it is actually a natural medicine. And it even says in the Bible, God put every seed and plant-bearing plant here to use for our good. And it actually helps with seizures, MS, all kinds of different diseases that are going on that, they're trying to chop it off because of the pharmaceutical companies. Not only is the medical field in bed with the pharmaceutical companies, but the government is as well because it's such a big money dish. Like, unless you have really good insurance, you're paying many, many dollars to get this medication when you can go out and pay like 10 or 20 or whatever and get the medication you actually need. But it's the pharmaceutical companies, and they're not only making money, but they're killing people. You're doing the whole controlling the populace thing. How many overdoses do you hear about on marijuana? How many overdoses do you hear about on opioids or different prescription drugs that they're putting out there. And
yeah, I know.
Really the only overdoses that I've heard about with marijuana is when people use the man-made marijuana, synthetic marijuana in things, and it actually kills people. Marijuana, I don't know a person that has ever died on that. There was a friend of ours that had, a very high dosage, whatever form in his pocket, fell asleep and it kind of melted in his pocket and absorbed. And he slept for 3 days. He pissed and crapped himself, but otherwise he was alive again 3 days later and wondering what the hell happened.
I've never heard of that happening.
Yeah, it was like a pure form of taking, into like a wax or whatever form, and then it melted in his pocket and absorbed. And so it was really high content before dabs or anything else came along. But yeah, that was the harshest thing that I had heard. Like, otherwise, it's like this person is over here driving 40 miles an hour in a 60 mile per hour lane.
Well, think about it. I think the government will concede. I think the government overall would probably want a nation of, stoners, so to speak. Everybody's stoned out of their mind. They'll be too stoned out of their mind to do anything. The protests will be great, At least they won't be drunk driving, the streets hitting each other. But, it's a very, sarcastic way of looking at it. But what I find funny is the Canadian marijuana that was legalized. Have you seen pictures of that? I mean, half the freaking joint is the filter. Those filters are huge and thick. It's a joke. And the packaging, you're spending more on the packaging than you are for the actual product. It's just like the Canadians are getting the prices I've seen. Oh boy, they're outrageous.
Yeah.
But I hope America follows suit. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to get guys like Monsanto in there, because they're already talking about wanting to get in the marijuana game. You don't want Marlboro in there manufacturing your stuff. You want to keep it local, like the medicinal guys do. You want to keep it at that level. And you don't want to legalize. You want to decriminalize. There's a big difference. Legalizing says, yeah, you can't have it. Decriminalization is everybody can have it, and you can grow it, I can grow it, and, you don't have to be 25 miles away from a dispensary, as in some states you have to be. If you want to grow at home, like here in Arizona, if you want to grow at home and you're a medicinal patient, you can't live within 25 miles of a dispensary.
Mm-hmm.
So they make you go buy it. You have to live out in the sticks. Michigan is different. You can have 6 plants in your home, and you can live right next door to one. Doesn't matter. So, and a lot of people still have this 1937 mentality that it's just bad, and it's a dirty drug, and you're dumb, and you can't think, and your intellect goes out the window. Boy, that tells me how ignorant that person is right off the bat, because that same person will take a drink, 6 or 7, maybe 9 or 10, and probably get in the car and drive. Well, I can do it. We've seen. Oh, I'm sorry. I picked up people who've died from drunk driving from my days at the medical examiner. So that's probably why I'm so harsh on the alcohol. I mean, I picked up my share of mangled bodies from it, and it's not fun.
Yeah, I mean, you don't ever hear of a guy going home and smoking a joint or whatever and beating his wife or his kids or whatever. It's generally the alcohol that is readily available to everyone, and it's been known to cause problems for a long time. Like, I enjoy partaking in a drink or 4, but I mean, my family was torn apart by a drunk driver. My mother was killed by a drunk driver. And it took my 3 older siblings to their dad and me and my little brother to ours, and then on and on and on to different homes. I mean, it does wreck lives, and people do get in the car. Like, this guy had been drinking all night at a bachelor party, and then on his way to the wedding, because he's the best man, he ended up smacking my mom's car with my sister Kathy and her friend Tracy in it. And she ran on a broken hip to call us from the payphone about 50 yards away. I'm like, how the heck did you even do that? But, I mean, it tears families apart, and it's legal. But here they've legalized it, and it's actually in the first 3 months that it was in action, billions of dollars in tax money. Like, what are you going to do with that? We're complaining about the schools, teachers not getting paid enough, insurance, all these other things that we could take care of so easily now because there's billions and trillions by now of dollars of tax money that's come in from it. And there's so many wonderful things we can do with it. And it's not killing or maiming or breaking up families, causing PTSD in kids because they're watching their dad beat their mom or whatever else he does because he's in a drunken slang. I mean, it's just use your common sense. It's a beautiful flower in the garden and partake of that. Like,
one of the most funniest drunk stories I've heard, and I have to say I couldn't. My stepmother's father was an alcoholic, sadly enough, but she told me a story that one night he went out drinking and gets up in the morning and he goes out to the garage, but he couldn't back his car out of the garage because somehow in his drunken stupor, he parked it perfect. Now this was a Lincoln back, and then this is like late 60s.
Mm-hmm.
He parked it perfectly horizontal in the garage with about an inch on each side. How you could park it perfectly horizontal in the little garage? She said. She said it took him about 2 hours to get out of the garage, inching it out back and forth. But how could you get in so perfectly? And I don't know.
He pulled an Austin Powers.
Superpowers when you're drunk. No, let me tell you, alcohol gives some amazing people, not just courage, but let me tell you, some superpowers. I've seen some stuff people do when they're drunk that there's just no way on God's green earth they do it when they're sober. And, and live to tell about it. I'm like, oh my God, you didn't feel that? Whoa. That was like, 15 feet, man. I've seen people jump, do somersaults, go down concrete stairs. Oh my, just all sorts of stuff. It totally turns into, when they say spirits, they ain't lying.
That's right.
That's what I think. I mean,
well, yeah, and people have actually been known to be taken over or whatnot when they are under the impression of alcohol, when they have taken a few hard drinks. And spirits are certain drinks. They're the harder alcohols. It's not the beers and such, but the harder alcohol. And sometimes things do jump in because they miss that feeling. They can't feel it anymore on the other side, really. And they're jonesing for that, so they'll take over your body to get that feeling and make you do some weird, crazy things from what I've heard from different people in this field.
Yeah, just like the movie Fallen with Denzel Washington. Now that's a creepy movie. Have you seen it?
No, I have to watch it now.
Oh my gosh! You want to talk about an entity jumping from one person to the next? Got to go watch Fallen. That's a good one. So, oh boy, we just talked about 30 different subjects in about 20 minutes.
That's all right. We're hanging out. We're in the SOR asylum with all our peeps. But yeah, there's so many different conspiracies that I had online here, and the original we talked about, the Coral Castle, but I have a list from you to choose from. I can give you a list and you can pick from one.
I don't know what old Jack come about. He talks about here's something for the people you were talking about earlier, these immigrants coming up from the border. What you do, you don't want them coming in, you put up LRADs, long-range audible devices, the sound weapons. You turn them babies on, they'll be running back to Mexico, back down to Honduras faster than you can say anything. You can't, they have they've used it on, certain protesters in America, so why aren't you using these fun toys?
Oh, they've used them for a long time, even in World War II, I believe.
Well, why don't they use them on these people? You're setting up tents and campgrounds, and, what are you going to build a Ferris wheel for these people? Don't kind of what the, God. I'm sorry.
There's the wall. Let's build the wall, but forever there's been tunnels that can fit a few semis back and forth. The wall's not going to help in that instance. It's just a...
No, see, people don't... Here again, people are thinking, you don't want to build a wall, okay? You're not going to... It's not that, I think everybody should have an equal shot. Sure, they should. But do it right. Do it legally.
Yeah, we're all immigrants, but we have to sign in. We had to do certain things.
But here's the thing.
Yeah, go according
to... People want to build a wall. Oh, we got to keep these people out. Okay, fine, buddy. What about if you want to leave America? Well, then what? Nobody said anything about you having to present your papers, because let me tell you, by 2020, at least here in Arizona, you have to have a federal ID to travel, to fly. And then by a certain year, you're going to have it to enter federal buildings. And if you don't, you can't enter a federal building, and you can't fly. And they're making everybody have to be compliant by 2020. Now, here's the thing that people laughed at 20 years ago, 25 years, well, not quite 25, I'll say 20, was the Real ID Act. Now, before Alex Jones lost his frickin' mind, he used to talk about it back in those days, the Real ID, because there was an issue he did on the documentary America Destroyed by Design that came out in '98, and he was down there at the Texas DMV, protesting it, and he wasn't going off the rocker like he is now. He was very. Here's a conspiracy theory, and this is another thing that a lot of people do not talk about, except for a few people have touched on the subject. If people want to look it up on YouTube. Alex Jones is not Alex Jones. And what I mean by that, there was a real Alex Jones who came out in '97, who had a radio show in Austin. And what a lot of hardcore researchers think, and I don't have any proof of this, this is just what they say and what I've read, is that the comedian Bill Hicks, was sheep-dipped and reemerged as Alex Jones, that the real Alex Jones was taken out somehow early. And was replaced with Alex Jones in about 1998, Bill Hicks playing Alex Jones. And that is why when he was sued in court, in divorce court, that's why his lawyer got him off and got away with a lot of the things that he's done on the air over the years. Oh, it's just a character he's playing, Alex Jones, it's not real. He's telling you half the truth. I'm not real, man. Alex Jones is just a character. Okay, then what's your real name? I can't go as far as to say that he's Bill Hicks, the comedian, but if you look, there's a lot of similarities, a lot of mannerisms, and they have a lot of the same best friends too. So you have to think the guy Kevin Booth was best friends with Bill Hicks, and now he's best friends with Alex Jones. Alex Jones takes a Podmus Award for Bill Hicks several years ago. Because the body structure and the tone of Alex Jones in 1997 versus the one in '98 is very different. And you used to be able to view it on YouTube before they started censoring everybody. You used to be able to see that video right on Alex Jones's channel. But now you can't see that. So, that's another thing. All this censorship that's going on. And I think that, derives from people being too sensitive. That's where it all begins. Everybody offends.
And I think it's also like keeping us censored. They do want us censored to a certain extent. There's a lot of things that we don't know unless we're a part of the military or whatnot. We're not subjected to it. And they keep it from us. And that's why I like to not only watch our news and different news channels, but the BBC and other news stations around the world, because they have different information than we do, and a lot of stuff is being kept from us, whether it's UFOs or other conspiracies going on. They censorship us, and civilians and citizens. Citizens are military people and above. Civilians are us. I was in the military, but I don't know if I'm still considered a citizen. I might be a civilian now, and I might not know when ish is about to hit the fan, and we're all going to die, but we don't know it until it's actually happening. Everybody else gets to get taken off to this safe place and under a mountain or underground or wherever in your vicinity, and all the rest of us are just going to die, and they're going to continue on after we're gone.
Well, here's a fun thing. Well, what I mean by fun is, this is something somebody can research. When here's another term that's so loosely tossed around that it kind of irritates me, because I really don't think people understand, I don't want to say what they're talking about, but the grave severity of, when they talk about MK Ultra and mind control, and they toss these buzzwords around, because when you get to the research and you get to listening to, especially Mae Brussel, because she reads right from these documents that she got from the FOI, Freedom of Information and Declassified Documents back in the 70s, of what they do to these people and the processes of, administering LSD or whatever else drug to see what would happen to these people. But there's a gal on YouTube who, I'll say claims to be, because I don't know for sure, an MK Ultra mind control survivor. Her name is Katy Groves, Katy Groves, Groves, and her videos start from about 11 months back, but she goes through the whole story of how she was born into this cult, gives background of her parents, and just goes into the story of her being used in every way possible in the human trafficking and, child sex rings and things like that. She talks of men so rich they pay, you're talking about billionaires now, they pay to live in these underground military bases in these little rooms, and they can never come out because they're, number one, they're that sick. But the stipulation is they have everything and anything that they want brought to them, they can pay for. So think of anything that you could ever want brought to you. But what they are brought are children and a lot of missing people. And these are the kind of subjects that when researchers go into, it gets them not living anymore. So you have to be careful when you go into grounds like these. But she talks about these subjects, so I'll leave that to the audience if they want to go play with that sort of thing. And that's about as far as I get into it, because it's very scary when you start treading into these waters. Because then we can think of cases like David Pilates, missing 411. It is plausible that you have underground bases out there in the national parks. Maybe some cases are, something like that, not necessarily paranormal. Maybe some are. Maybe it's a conglomeration of different factors. Who knows?
Yeah, it's hard to say. There's so much stuff going on, and it's just a matter of being aware of your surroundings and knowing what's right and adapting and overcoming. But getting back on, like, we're talking about different conspiracies, and there's so much going on in our government and all over the freaking place. But here we have HAARP. What just happened?
Yeah, Art Bell covered that like in 1996. He had a good show on it.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna play like we're on Jeopardy right now, and these are the different subjects. Okay, so HAARP's project in Alaska, the moon hoax, directed energy weapons, Roswell and Nazis, Joan Rivers calling Michelle Obama a man, transgender, and Obama gay. Yeah. And the man that finds the tree in California looking for a way out, and this tree, there's nothing else on fire around it, but this tree is burning from the inside out, which could go back to directed energy weapons.
I don't know. Every time I look on TV, California's on fire. But see, then I look back, back in 2002, we had a big one here in Arizona, the Rodeo Chedesky fire. That burned up a lot. So we have our fair share as well. But yeah, I don't know if they're using those sort of weapons or not. I cannot say. It wouldn't surprise me. It would be a very subtle way to move the populace and take over.
Yeah.
And very, very, we didn't do that. What are you talking about? We can't direct fire. Come on. Fantasy. That's the answer you're going to get.
Well, I shared this link that this guy, he had taken a video. He's looking for these ways out if the fire encroaches on them. How can I get out? So he's got a game plan. All of a sudden, he sees this tree, which is burning from the inside out. The bark on the outside, the leaves, everything's fine. But on the inside, it's burning. And you look around in this area that this tree is. Had things around it been on fire, I could see it going through like the roots and the pine needles or dead leaves or whatever below and igniting this thing from the inside out because of the sap or whatnot. But there's nothing else around this tree that is on fire. And I actually shared that on Spaced Out Radio and my own page, as well as Four Corners Paranormal, because it's just like, what is happening? Is this a directional energy weapon?
Does raise a question.
Yeah, what the heck is that?
Just like a lot of people say, this 5G's cooking people from the inside out. So,
well, yeah, we had that like back in the day when you hear about people just sitting and watching TV or doing other random things and they just spontaneously combust. But yeah, a lot of people are saying these fires in California are actually directional energy weapons, and it's just not explained.
They were testing them kind of weapons back then.
Yeah, what was it, Star Wars or Space Wars or whatever Reagan had named it?
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Space Wars. That's pretty good. I like that one.
Spaceballs.
I don't think that ever stopped. I'm sorry. I don't think that Star Wars initiative ever stopped. So I don't have proof of that, obviously. But when they say they're not doing something, I'm sure they are. Whoever they are.
Who are they? And that is the main question. Because we always say they, but it's the ones that are in control of all this stuff.
Well, speaking of they, Men in Black, if you like good Men in Black stories, a good early researcher about the Men in Black is Jim Keith. He wrote a textbook for Men in Black, and he also did Black Helicopters, and then Black Helicopters Over America, the Endgame Strategy. And what's funny is, if you go on YouTube or read some of these reviews, a lot of people think that this is false or disinformation. And I laugh because it just shows me how brainwashed the populace in a general way has become to automatically discount somebody's work right off the bat. And it's like, and these are the pioneers of what the subject has become mainstream now. I've seen more Illuminati, more Freemason, conspiratorial rise in the last less than a decade than the last, 50 years, so to speak. It's crazy what the internet has done for these subjects. And some people are right. You would think a lot would be coming more out on the internet, but also a lot is being suppressed too, not to come out on the internet. There's a lot of stuff that they don't want out there.
Well, some gets out for a short time, and then once they're privy to it, they'll take it off. And you can't see it anymore. You share it, and then people try to look at it, and it's like, link is not available any longer. And you're like, okay, well, it was there. I can still see it, but these other people can't see it.
Like, for instance, I would love to see a real Dogman photo. And I know a certain host of a show has those videos, but I know that he won't release them. And with good reason, I'm sure. Not only to protect people who took them, but if it's real evidence, well, you don't want the Men in Black knocking on your door for the Dogman photos. And that's a really interesting one to me. Do you have any cryptid stories up there in Colorado, or any local legends?
Well, we have skinwalkers. I haven't really heard any reports of Dogman in this area. And a lot of people are saying they see this Dogman sort of thing wearing armor and carrying a spear. And it reminds you of back in Egyptian times and Anubis and all these different creatures that were around, because they only depict really what they're seeing. So there's, I don't know if it's genetic modifications from aliens or if these things were just actually existing at the time. But now they're seeing them again, these dogmen wearing armor with spears. In other regions, you see just the dogman without any of that, and you see the glowing eyes and the attacks, like it'll attack one person, leave the other person alone, or certain farm animals or whatnot. And some people say that the dogman is a government weapon that escaped. I think it was in the mid-east of the United States, around like the Kentucky, Arkansas, Tennessee, that realm of the United States. Somehow it escaped, but I don't know if it's true. Could it be skinwalkers? And I know that's Navajo and Ute realm, because I've seen it in the Ute Nation, living at certain places. Or is it something else that just goes further through different tribes?
Interesting. Yeah, I never saw anything weird out in the desert like that. Heard some strange things, but no dogmen. When I used to live in Maryland, we had the legend of the Goat Man.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly, there was a government labs, I guess, sometime in the 50s or 60s, that wasn't too far from where I used to live. And if you look at it on a map, it looks like to be in the middle of the woods now, but it's been since abandoned. But supposedly this is where this goat man creature had come from. Kind of looks like the legs of a goat walking upright and a kind of a torso of a man. I don't know, but not too many reports on that thing.
Well, and you hear the opposite too, like is it? I want to say centaur, but is that the horseman? It's the goat man, like with the human upper portion, the goat under portion, and then the horns through the skull.
I believe so. When they get out into mythology and creatures, when they introduce that stuff to us in school, it was too weird for me back then. I was like, all right, this is just, I mean, it was interesting, but it was strange. Yeah, guys, like you said, the bottom of the horse and the upper torso of a man running around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe that's the centaur. I can't remember what the goat man is at the moment. But yeah, there's different variations and there's different creatures, and I kind of believe that mythology is basically a different realm of history for us. Things that happened in the past that we can't really wrap our minds around.
Tell me your story again that you told me and Dan.
Which one?
When we were hanging out, about your little gnome encounter. Have you told it before on the air?
I think so. When I was in Arkansas at my sister's house.
Whatever one you told us that you watched, that was freaky, because he still talks about that. He's more fascinated with that than anything.
Okay, let me take a sip of water real quick.
Okay, sure, sorry.
Okay, so I'm living at my sister's house in Paris, Arkansas. It's actually on the outskirts. We're like way back in the woods. And I'm sleeping in my niece Thea's room. And I've always had issues getting to sleep at night. I've had night terrors, all kinds of different things going on. And I'm just laying there one night trying to get to sleep, trying to quiet my mind. And all of a sudden I hear this chitter-chatter coming out of the kitchen area. And I'm thinking, because my sister's room is on the other side of the kitchen, she's going to come out and we're going to play Boggle or whatever. And I look and she's not there. And all of a sudden I see these two guys. They're male versions of, I like to call them the Takers, but they could be gnomes. They weren't wearing pointy hats, but they had coveralls, pants, t-shirts, little shoes and such, and they were a little taller than what you'd see a Barbie. Like, they're on this space that's a counter space with storage underneath, and then on top you have the storage space for like your china or your tea set or whatever you put up there. And they're running along this little area, and one of them is messing around with something. The other one decides to sit on the edge of this little storage space on the bottom. And he's kicking his feet back and forth, da-da-da-da-da. And then the other one comes up and pushes him from behind, like trying to push him off the surface of this cabinet space. And he grabs onto the ledge and he pulls himself back up, and they're fighting back and forth. And I'm like, oh my God, like if any time I'm going to sit up and go in there and actually see this up close, like this is actually happening, it's right now, because they're distracted by each other fighting. And so I get up out of the bed, and so I lose the vision of them because I sat up in bed and the doorway is no longer there. The wall's there, and then I get up and go back to the doorway and they're gone. Like there's nothing happening. So I'm just like, what the F just happened? But in that house we had different things happening, like keys disappearing, lighters, cigarettes, different things that you'd commonly use, socks, underwear, jeans, like different things. Like my sister can't fit into my jeans, I can't fit into hers. Like nobody else could use these pieces of clothing. So what's going on? Why are they missing? But then you see them wearing clothes, like jean, like coverall looking things, or pants, shoes, t-shirts. Yeah, they're making clothes out of socks and underwear and different fabrics that they can take. But if you sit and ask, like, can you please, I really need my keys because I got to go to work, I'm going to be late already, can you please just bring it back? I'll go to the other room, and then if you have it there where I left it, I would so appreciate it. And then I do that. I go to the room where I can't see them anymore, and they put it back. So I ask people, like, when they're like, okay, this went missing, what should I do? Well, ask nicely, can you please bring it back? Because I really need that. Like this other stuff, the sock or whatever to this other pair, you can keep that, or you can keep my undies, or this pair of jeans. I have like 3 more. Right. But please bring this back because I really need it right now. And they will. Because they hear you and they're just there somewhere. It's really weird. I can't explain it. I just experienced it.
It's those types of things that you wonder, what, first off, where are they living? In the walls? I mean, because you think of like the old cartoons from the 80s, like the Littles, like the little humanoids with the tails, and they have these little, I don't know, they look like a cross between a human and a mouse. They're really weird looking. But they lived in the walls, you know, of houses. You know, it's just like, oh, creepy. But I like that story. That was just creepy. The little... Like, you know, I play with my daughter's Barbies with her, and I could just imagine one of them things coming away. That's living to the
I saw you.
I walked into a room. Oh, God.
Yeah, and they're all playing, and then they just fall down. No, I saw your profile picture with the Barbie doll with her hair done up all crazy. And I'm like, Jason had to do that. But yeah, you can see these things, and they're a little taller than a Barbie doll. Somebody was saying Barbie doll size, but it's actually like 2 or 3 inches taller than a Barbie doll. And they're fuller. Like they're not all bony and, you know, wishing they had a cheeseburger. Yeah. They have a good girth about them. I don't know. It was weird. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I sat up, and then I went to go see it closer, and they were gone. Like, they're so fast and quick, and I think they have that sixth sense or that different intelligence that they can pick up on the energy in the atmosphere and move from that. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It reminds me of that trilogy of terror movie where that little thing's running around with a knife in his mouth. You ever seen that movie?
Yeah, like the kids were playing with the dolls and stuff, and then certain ones came to life, and then other ones came from like underground or something.
Drew Barrymore was in that one. Yeah, Drew Barrymore was in that one. It hops up on her, and it's trying to suck the breath out of her nose. You know,
and she's struggling to get away, but she's kind of got that paralysis going on that they call, AKA sleep paralysis. It's like, okay, if it was a mind thing and it was sleep paralysis that happens all the time, no, I've only had it like 2, maybe 3 times. That does not explain it. And there's there are things there, and how can it be that and people have the same experience not knowing each other, but they see the same thing, like the man in the hat or the hag or these different things that happen that you don't even know about until you actually look into it?
Well, I'll tell you, it is an entity, and I just have to say, when I lived in Maryland, when I was with my daughter's mother, I would get that all the time. Sleep paralysis, everything, for years. And ironically, when we broke up and she left the house, all that stopped, all of it. And it's been over a year now, and no sleep paralysis, no shooting up out of bed, no disorientation, none of that. I wouldn't get the hag, but I get that dark entity kind of thing holding me down.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's something not good. But there again, I think those things attach themselves to people. It looks like it was attached to her, because if it's not around me now.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is something attached to her that's now attacking you, trying to get your energy as well. Because you're kind of plugged in.
Said, yeah.
Not anymore, but when you were with her, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. Even when I was together, we were apart. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was over then, but it was just going through the motions. But you can tell people their energies, and there is something to it. I don't scoff it all off. But some people just have that dark black. They just mess with things they shouldn't even mess with, or like for her, I don't know how, but she would always attract just unsightly derelicts. I never understood it. You could put her in a room with people from all walks of life. She'd pick out every vagrant in the place. It's just some people attract that sort of energy. And I'm not putting those type of people down, but I'm talking like people you don't want to hang out with. You know what I'm saying? And you look at somebody and you'd say, what would possess you to do that? To even want to, I don't know. I've seen so many weird things in my life. I've seen people do seances and, and blood rituals, and it's like things that you shouldn't mess with. And when it comes to what I say, black magic, and chanting and rituals and spells. When people talk about witches, and that's, I think, another thing that's thrown. I'm not putting them down, but when people say, "Oh, I'm a witch," and I think, when I think witches, I'm thinking people who actually pray for bad things to happen. And if people don't believe that actually happens, oh yeah, you better believe it. People pray. There are sick people out there that pray for death and destruction, and pray to call it Lucifer or Satan. A lot of people can roll their eyes if they want to. That's fine with me. But there is an element of that, I think, society that really does those sorts of things, and that's downright scary.
Yeah, my mentor, she believed in angels, but she didn't believe in demons and other stuff like that. And that's where we had a crossroads. I'm like, you have to have the bad with the good. Like, you can't have angels and not have demons. Like, they are out there. I have seen what I used to call kobolds. Now they more look like the Kentucky Goblin when I'm doing online research. But you can't have the good without the bad, otherwise you don't know the difference, and to every thing that happens, there is an opposite reaction. So, yeah, if you believe in angels, how can you not believe these demons exist? And I've seen them in action. I watched them chase my brother. Actually saw them out in the chicken yard. These things do exist. I actually met the devil, and luckily my dad had taught me, because I had night terrors all the time as a kid, and I'd wake up and not be able to go back to sleep, and he's like, "Oh my God, kid, just go back to sleep." And I'm like, "Well, I'm scared to go back to sleep because I'm going to have bad dreams." And so he'd tell me, "God stands before me, Satan fall behind." And I didn't even say it out loud when I encountered the devil. I just said it in my head, and like that, I was knocked out. And I'm so grateful for that. Like, my mom actually had an in-depth conversation, and I think that actually led to her death. She knew exactly when, where, and how she was going to die. Like, if it were me, I would have stayed home that day. I would have stayed in bed, but she faced the demon. She went out and faced it to see what was going to happen. She wouldn't let me go because she said, you won't live through this. My sister, she was not supposed to go, but she begged and begged and begged, and she's like, fine, you can go, but you're going to sit in the back seat, and you're going to wear your seatbelt, and this and this and that and that. She got hit where she thought she would, which was not even a mile from our house, at a corner store in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, my sister ran from the accident with a broken hip to the payphone, called us where I was, where my mom dropped me off, and the whole time she's going to this house where she's dropping me off, she's saying, please don't let me die, please don't let me die, let me make it there. I promise to be where I'm supposed to, but let me make it here to get my daughter dropped off. And so she dropped me off, picked up my sister. I didn't go in the house. I sat in the car out in the driveway, and it was just storming, pouring, and raining. Like, it was total crazy thunderstorms. You're just expecting a tornado here in Arkansas to happen. And then all of a sudden it cleared up. The skies were bright, and I quit crying, and I actually felt kind of at peace. Like, I don't know. I went into the house. Tracy, her mom, and their other siblings were running around screaming and crying. They got a call from my sister. My mom had been in an accident and hit by a drunk driver. Please come get us. Please help us. And so we went there to the accident site, which was right down the road from my house. And they left me in the car, and they went out to, observe what was going on. I could see the ambulance pulling away with my mom. They took her to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And I'm just looking out the back window thinking somebody else is going to hit the back of my car, because we're on this weird curve that goes around our house. It's a curve. We've had hitchhikers come down to our house. Different things happen, but you can't see the other side. So I'm thinking somebody's going to hit me, and having this PTSD issue, basically. But yeah, Kit Kat, my mom, it was either her or her kids, and she sacrificed herself so we could live. And she knew what was going to happen. When she was in Colorado, she wrote her dad a letter that told how she was going to die and how she wanted her funeral, and she needed her dad to help her plan her funeral. And when she got back, she took all of us kids over there, and she was telling her grandpa, they're arguing back and forth. He's like, you should never say stuff like this. And she's like, Dad, it's true. You got to listen to me. Please, please help me with what I'm asking you to do. And he finally broke down. Okay, I'll help you. And so, yeah, she planned her own funeral, if you can believe that. I don't want to be in that place unless I'm like dying of cancer and I know I'm dying and, this is how I would like it to be. She just knew what was going to happen. And it was a really quick death, basically. Her spirit was gone. Her body was still alive. She didn't recognize anybody. She couldn't talk. She was on a ventilator and a drip and all these other things, which in her written will she didn't want, because to her that was not living. And so we took her off after about almost 2 weeks, and then she was gone. But yeah, she just had that weird internal fear. She couldn't recognize anybody. She felt like she was surrounded by strangers that were trying to hurt her. But yeah, she got her wish. She got her funeral that she wanted, and we're all safe. We've been through different accidents, and we've had different paranormal events happen to save us from that. So it's been really interesting. And once we pass that certain age of 33, 34, then we feel safe, like the curse is broken, because that's when she died. So yeah, it's been really interesting and really kind of scary. And I educate my kids. Some people are like, I don't want to tell my kid this, but it's better to educate your child so they're protected. But on that note, we're a minute over commercial break. I'm so sorry. We'll come back after these messages.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rockin'. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother is watching.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter. So come give The Encounter a read.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our Advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Sit back, relax, grab a drink, and listen closely. Spaced Out Radio continues through the weekend. From the mile-high mountains of Colorado to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Weekend with Tessa Nicole Thomas.
It's funny, they kind of put you to sleep on the second break, and this last one we're like raging.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, what are we going to talk about?
Coin collecting. Oh, okay.
Well, that kind of reminds me of like meteor hunting. Like, I need a stick with a magnet on the end of it, and I'll go walk out in the desert and find little meteorites, which can be thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I'll just retire that way.
That'd be nice. No, I like coin collecting. Oh, God. Hobby of kings.
Well, what's the rarest coin that you found?
That I've ever owned?
Yeah, that you've ever come across.
Well, personally, that I've owned, I think it was as far as mintage goes, probably, I don't know, it's like a 1912 Barber nickel or Liberty nickel. Those in fine condition run $200, and that's like one worn down. An 1884 $10 gold coin, a 1913 proof Barber nickel. My oldest coin is he gave to my brother. It's a 1776 one Spanish real coin, like a Spanish silver dollar. That was pretty cool.
My older brother Greg had a coin collection that he was saving for his daughter Sierra, and he actually had some really rare old coins that were worth a lot of money, and he poured it all out one night because he was telling me about these coins he had in there, and he finally picked them out, and he's like, these are the coins that Judas gave or was given to turn over Jesus Christ. And I'm like, I don't even want to touch that. Like, what is the karma behind that coin? And really, how much is that coin worth? Like, that is priceless.
Those same coins, well, it wouldn't be the same coins that turned Christ over. It'd be from the coins from the same period. And you'd be amazed. You can get ancient coins for cheap. So, a lot of them. Now, some of them are pricey. You know, a couple $100 here, $400 or $500 there. But generally, ancient coins, you can get them for a lot cheaper than what you think.
Well, yeah, it just depends on how they've been circulated or taken care of, what kind of tarnishment, have you cleaned it up to make it look prettier? Because sometimes the tarnish is more worth money than cleaning it up and getting all the tarnish off of it. They want it in its original form.
Right, yeah, you never clean a coin, I know that, yeah. So, the only way you'd clean it, so to speak, is to dip it in pure acetone and then let it soak in there and then rinse it. It's about the only extent of cleaning. But yeah, coins usually bore the common person. So you should see the commemorative $50 they're coming out for next year. The little boy on it looks like a little Barack Obama. Yeah, God. I mean, can they be more obvious? A lot of people hate the design, and because the design on the front, it's two different fonts. The lettering is two different fonts. I mean, come on. At least let it be the whole font on the whole. I don't know. It looks bad. But they're doing the moon coins next year for the anniversary.
The moon? That would be cool. So, speaking of which, there's this other mystery, aka conspiracy. A lot of people think that the original moon landing was a hoax. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, man.
Like Stanley Kubrick came in and helped them with the film and everything to fake the moon, and people are looking at Buzz Aldrin's shoes, and they're like, where's the grip that was on there? Well, it's actually a separate piece. You have the metal, magnet thing on there that you have different grips that fit on there. So this one was attached, and he walked on the moon with that, and then they detached it when they put it into the museum for some reason. So people were like, no, that's not real. That's not what it looked like. And the flag was waving. Could it be because they had put it up there and yanked it a certain way, so it's just got that kind of waving effect left over from the inertia that they had put on it? What is happening?
All I know is their optimism to build moon bases before 1969 was off the charts. You could finally find any, comic book about it. They had plans. Oh, we're going to build moon bases. They go up there and then no moon bases. So one of two things happened. We went up there, we were told never come back, or we never went. And, you hear some of these guys on, the NASA channel. I can't remember who it was, but, they're saying, well, we can't go past the radiation belt, or we can't go past this. So they have slipped up in certain ways, you know what? We probably haven't been to the moon, and they don't want to, let the cat out of the bag now. 50 years later, got to keep the hoax going. So, but I'm not going to go as far and say the Earth is flat. So, because these flat earthers, that's interesting to me. That people believe the Earth is flat in the 21st century.
Well, I'm kind of thinking if the Earth were flat, my cats would have whacked everything off of it by now. So, yeah.
Here's another thing. What I think a lot of people get confused, and they like to throw Admiral Byrd into the hollow Earth theory. My God, the guy never said anything about hollow Earth. In the diary they say is his, wasn't even written by him. See, this what irritates me when people just regurgitate things that they've heard or read without actually looking up. Either way, what he did say, now I can't corroborate this, but in an interview, and you used to be able to watch it on YouTube apparently, an old CBS interview that Byrd did, but he apparently described there's a continent beyond the ice wall of Antarctica. It's not a hollow Earth, but he overflew it. And apparently what he saw was some species of dinosaurs and woolly mammoths. And Chris is the one that told me that the guy that had the run-in with Baritone and Shemya in the 70s. But either way, he was telling me that Byrd said this in the interview that was first uploaded to YouTube about 10 years ago. And he says, now, you can't find it. They edited it out. But he said originally Byrd was talking about this continent beyond Antarctica. And I could see that. If you find a whole other continent, especially with prehistoric animals on it still, man, that's almost a bigger story than the UFO landing. Dinosaurs alive in the 20th century at the time? Whoa.
Yeah, and they're actually finding plant seeds and such that they've planted and grown, and it's a historic plant that has been, since expired, but now it's actually growing and living on the planet again today. But there's other things being released as well, talking about Antarctica and, the melt-off, and, you find people in mummy form because they've been frozen and preserved so well, and they're frozen in a certain way. You find cloaks with DNA on it. So many different things are being brought up from the earth. It's pretty amazing, and it's exciting to wonder what we're going to find up there, but at the same time it's kind of scary because there are different viruses and bacteria being released as well that we're not used to.
Well, I think Antarctica is probably, my guess is it's probably turned into a different kind of world down there. I mean, nobody knows what goes on over there. They can say it's scientific, this and that, all they want. That's what they say. But didn't one of the didn't Obama go down there or Trump go down there? I can't remember. One of the presidents. It was recent, last few years, but there's a lot of activity that's been going on down there. Even since the late 20s and 30s when birds started going down there, and then the Nazis started making their expeditions down there, and the it even states in the National Geographic for September 1957 that particular issue came with a whole detailed map of Antarctica on both sides. I happen to have it, and on it states right there, it's the rolling hills and the ice-free oasis and the warm areas of Antarctica. Shows you there, right there on the map where it is. And now that's all deemed classified. You won't find that on any modern map. And some of these National Geographic magazines for Antarctica back in those days actually came with the maps and pictures and actually showed you where, bird and the U.S. staked their claim, as well as where the German government staked their claim, and renamed these places down there, and the bases and things that were going on. I mean, Mae Brussel was talking about it in the 80s, of how in the 70s they were purifying the water down there in Antarctica, and the seawater. And if they can do that, why aren't they doing that now? So these are goes into the hidden technology kind of category. So imagine if they could purify the salt water.
I was talking about that yesterday. If you can just master that, then we can be giving water to people in Africa and all these other places. And I heard about technology long ago where they actually mastered that, but it's another thing that they're keeping from people, just like Tesla's free energy. That was kiboshed, and they went on another realm with this other guy that was actually willing to do the whole, earning money for this, charging everybody for this energy. And now they're doing that with water, and people are perishing because they're, dying of dehydration and starvation and such, because they can't water their crops, they can't do all these other things, even though the technology is out there to clean the salt and all these other things out of the water that we don't need to be drinking. A certain amount of salt is okay, but the like Robert's saying, desalinization, but this percentage of salt that's in there is toxic. It'll dehydrate you even more. But you can get it to a certain amount to where it's actually good for plants and humans, but they're not willing to share it because, again, populace control. The population of the earth is already far exceeding what people of the past are saying that it should be. If we reach over this certain amount, then it's the end of the world.
I don't believe that for a minute. These people, it's the fearmongers on one side, and then you got some other factor on the other side yelling this. Everybody's screaming, wolf. It's enough's enough. I know what you're saying. It's a racket out there. But
yeah, it's like these stones in Alabama that are saying the earth can only attain this much, and after that it's going to be destroyed. And so people are doing different things. Even the guy from, what was it, IBM or whatnot, we got to do this. We got to do this, de-sterilize people, do this and this and that to control the population. We're going to start this over in Southern Africa where people don't know any better. We're giving you immunizations to make you better, but actually we're sterilizing you so you can't repopulate, and trying to save the world that way. But really, actually, it's too late. We've already surpassed what we could, supposedly. I don't know.
Well, they've been doing that stuff for years, though. They've tried certain what we'll call depopulation agendas through different things. First it was, some could say, some could argue that AIDS was man-made and created. I read that it was manufactured and bottled in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. It's just one of the many things I've read over a plethora of years and many books that I've had. But, after a while, you do start to see a common narrative of where some of these things have come from. Another good one is swine flu. Mae Bustle did a show all about the swine flu. It came from Fort Detrick, Maryland, and how it was introduced, I believe, in 1976 in the vaccine. But you could look up her show on the swine flu. She goes into the whole thing about it. Gives the information and the source sheets and everything. And her argument was, well, wait a minute. She says, how do they know what kind of food is going to be coming this year? You know how long it takes to make a vaccine? She goes, and they're right. I mean, how can you predict the flu season unless you have a particular strain coming out? And I have to say this. The last time I got the flu, it landed me in the hospital for 5 or 6 days dehydrated and hallucinating. And that's when I was 17. And thank God I have never had the flu since. So, some would say, oh, that's a coincidence. But how many coincidences is that to affect?
Yeah, it's interesting. We actually had an outbreak of the swine flu at this church camp in between Bayfield and Vallecito, which they're, with maps and as far as zones and such go, they're basically the same place, even though they're about 15 or so miles apart. But in between Bayfield and there, where I used to bartend, I had to drive past this church camp, and they had an outbreak of the swine flu. And so when I drive past there, and it seems silly to me now, but I would hold my breath driving past there, like, I don't want to inhale whatever's coming off of this place, and I don't want to get sick with this swine flu because it's just a crazy, crazy thing. H1N1, like Kit Kat's saying, is what it's called. And yeah, I'd hold my breath, have the windows down, like no ventilation system. I don't want to trap it anywhere, and then get a certain extent to where, I need to roll it back up and, start breathing again. Otherwise, I'm going to pass out. But you just get that paranoia. Like, not me, coach. I don't want it. And I'm driving right past this place, which is only 50 feet off the road. I don't want to catch that.
Well, this new generation doesn't remember like we do. Like, remember the SARS outbreak or the SARS attack several years ago, and then the anthrax thing shortly after 9/11. And just a lot of these things have been escalating over a period of years. These, from school shootings to, you had the first World Trade Center thing in '93, and then you had Waco and Ruby Ridge, and then the Oklahoma thing. So to say that, these events are new, no, they've just been slowly escalating. That's where somebody has an agenda. The script is so predictable now. But what really irritates me is when people say that these events are flat out fake. Now, I think some of these events, I think they're real, and I think some of them are not real. Now, the problem is which ones are and which ones aren't, because we're just so inundated with, we had the California shooting at the bar the other day, and then we had the Jewish shooting last week. I mean, this is just outright insane. Right before the election, And it's classic MO for, we'll use the term they, and they've been doing it since, the Kennedy assassination. And if people, did their research in their history, they would see the routine increase in this sort of violence for every 4 years, and it's just been getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, like the guest last night, he was asking, so what do you think? Is this a political agenda or what? I think it's just the degradation of man as far as what they're putting out to us in, television, on the internet, all these things we're subjected to. They're desensitising us for violence, for sexual activities, certain sexual activities, and causing major mental issues. Like you were saying earlier, everybody's looking at their iPads or their phones or whatever. They're not reaching out intellectually to other humans, trying to get that human interaction. And so it's causing different mental things to happen.
They don't want a nation of critical thinkers. I mean, it's true. A famous comedian once said that. But I've noticed it now. You try to talk to somebody on the street, and I don't mean literally, but, you say you're out shopping or you're at a restaurant, you want to strike up a conversation, or you say hi to somebody. I mean, nowadays, people are just so fearful. They look at you like, oh, my God, he's a man, vampire, put up your cross. It is so hard to associate with people that it's like they don't know how to talk or even communicate, or they're just too afraid. Maybe I'm generalizing it too much, but I've just noticed that coming out of, my shell. I've been in a bubble for 10 years, when you're in a relationship and you're raising children, the world kind of just goes by, so to speak. Because you're not in that realm of dating and the single scene or the social scene. It doesn't even have to be the single scene. So is there even a single scene at our age? But you know what I'm saying. On break at work the other day, everybody has their phones in their faces, and I'm the only one, staring at the wall.
Yeah, you see all these pictures of people sitting together, but they're looking down at their phones. They're not looking at each other. They're not touching each other. They're not giving that eye contact, that human interaction that you actually need. Like, we're social beings, and we actually need that social interaction. And yes, this internet interaction is faster, quicker. You got more people talking to you all the time, but it's totally different than the personal interaction that you get face to face. That's why when I go out, I act like I'm back in Arkansas on the back, the back roads or whatever. When I drive by somebody, I'll wave. When I see somebody, when I go to the store, I'll look at them, try to make eye contact and smile, because it's so important to give that to somebody, because that is what we're lacking this day and age. Everybody's looking down. Nobody's paying attention. And, as far as the alien stuff goes, my first time, actually having that encounter, I saw one before that from my car after my kids had seen it, and I looked up and it was there, and my daughter made me go home. But then I saw it in my backyard, and I'm holding my son and thinking about Dylan Redwine, and my kids and my husband are playing this war game on the TV, and so they're paying attention to that. They're not looking outside. Nobody looks outside anymore. Nobody looks up anymore. We're all doing this, different electronical thing, interacting on the web, the internet, the interweb. But I saw this thing, and I had to call everybody's attention to it. Like, come look at this. At first I stepped out the door, first foot out, I realized I don't know what this thing is. I don't know what it wants. I got kids to raise, and so I stepped back in, closed and locked the door, and then called my family over to see it. Me and my daughters saw the same thing. My husband saw something totally different, which, gives you like that cloaking device idea. But yeah, it was interesting, and, even trying to take pictures of the skunk or the fox or the raccoon on my job site, you get so fidgety-jittered, and you try to get to your phone on your camera, and you just can't, get it in time, and, at least have somebody come over and look at it and witness it with you. And so that's what I did. Instead of trying to get a picture, I wish I had a picture of that freaking orb, because it was amazing. It was like 3 or 4 feet in diameter and looked like it had liquid fire going through it. Kit Kat is saying in the chat room, the machines already took over. Let me give you an example. My phone tells me where to go, who to pick up, where to take them. It pays me, and it's my entertainment as well. Not to mention, it's how I connect to Spaced Out Radio to work the social media. Yes, the machines have already taken over, and that's so true.
It's horrible. Don't lose your humanity, is what I say. Oh, God forbid somebody asks for a hug. Oh, gosh, that's going too far.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. I like the fact, I like the old technology. I like the stereo and the corner and turntable and, you know, all those fun gadgets. Everything on a phone now is just crazy.
Well, when I see people I know, like, I hug them all the time because that is so important to give that energy and that love. But, yeah, about 2 weeks ago, I killed my iPhone. I was coming home about 7:15 in the morning after working 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. on the security graveyard shift. And so I'm taking these pictures of this sunrise, and with the iPhone, all you have to do if you have it set right is click the up volume button. So I'm doing that out the window really quick, and I go to bring it back in, and there's not a big enough space, so I have to turn my phone kind of flat, and that's when the wind just took it, and it flew out of my hand and down the road and landed in the center line. And so I parked on the side of the road and went back to get it, and then by the time I got to it, it was in perfect condition still. But then like 5 or 6 vehicles drove over it, and it was in 3 different pieces, but the SD card was okay. So yeah, I ordered a phone, wasn't the right one. It took me about 2 weeks to get a phone back, and it was so weird because, you know, I'm out of touch with everybody. Usually I'm messaging, answering emails, updating my Four Corners Paranormal page, doing all these other things, but I'm out of the loop. Unless I'm at a computer or a laptop, I can't do anything. So, yeah, everybody's like, why are you so quiet? I haven't heard from you for a while. Is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, I just haven't had a phone in a couple weeks, so I'm not able to do all these things. So it does put you in touch with people, but at the same time, it takes you away from people.
Yeah.
Kit Kat says, nature just slapped me for that. I still got to look on the clouds, see if those sunrise pictures came through.
Yeah, it's a lot different now. I mean, my daughter can work computer, and she's already learning coding, and I'm like, I was still doing finger paints when I was in kindergarten. You're learning coding, you know. And she started that in kindergarten last year. I was like, wow. You know, they start them young.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing what they're learning, and I try to give my kids a head start, you know, doing ABC Mouse and all these other things online and learning how to interact with this, because it is the wave of the future. This is what they're using. You don't write cursive anymore. You write in coding, like you were saying. These are different things they're teaching our kids. We can have our own code, like writing cursive. The kids will never know what we're writing. Because it is so hard to tell, what is that? I remember doing that as a kid. What is my aunt doing? I can't even read that.
Yeah.
Like, I can read, but I can't read what she's writing.
Oh, you ever see a shorthand book? Oh, my gosh. My mom did shorthand.
Mm-hmm.
She had one in shorthand, and the different little doohickeys. That was, oh, man. That was confusing.
Shorthand and symbols and such.
Oh, to me, yeah.
Kit Kat says, all hail Megatron.
Megatron, is that what she said?
Yeah.
The Transformer, Megatron.
Yeah, it's funny. But it's weird because we don't have that social interaction, and there's a few videos out there that are talking about that, like, look up, put your phone down, like, interact with that human, because that could be the last time that human interacts with somebody, because the suicide rate is so high, and people feel lost and hopeless because the bullying online is just out of control. Unless you report it, which very few people do, people are getting hammered into the ground, and kids are going online when they're way younger than they should be going online, and then they're not only dealing with bullying in school, where they're doing nothing about it, they're punishing the kids that stick up for themselves, but they're also doing it online now, so it's really hard for kids these days.
Yeah, it is. Well, I've noticed that, as I get older and friends, nobody wants, at least in my area, maybe here's the excuse that I love. When I used to live back east, so naturally people, you live too far to visit. Now that I'm in the state, to hear the excuse now, you live across town, it's too far. No, idiot. When I lived in Maryland, that was too far. I'm an hour away at the most, and you tell me I'm too far? So these tell me that, these types ain't your friends to begin with, And then, some even family members, too. I had one tell me the other day, I'm never going to come see you at your house. It's just too far to drive. I'm like, oh, but you expect me to drive all the way over there? It's like, is this laziness? Or are people just, becoming something else? You have to wonder.
Yeah, becoming somewhat stagnant.
Yeah. I mean, you got the freeway now. It's not like, we're using dirt roads and an hour. Gosh, whatever. I think it's funny. Because they'd rather, like you say, sit home and text and we can video chat. Forget the video chat. Let's have brunch.
Yeah, it never lives up to that human interaction.
Yep. So, what do you want to go on to next? We got a few minutes, I guess.
Well, I have this video about the landing conspiracy, which is about almost 6 minutes. 5 minutes and 56 seconds. And we can listen to that really quick and then go from there.
If you want. I mean, you want to do the moon thing, that's fine with me. I'm 50-50 on it. Yeah, but, my question is, why haven't we gone back? And I have seen the lunar lander at the Air and Space Museum in D.C., and to be honest, it's kind of laughable. To me it is, because I sat there thinking, this landed on the, really? Because you can hardly fit in the thing. It's really interesting. And so here's another thing before we get into it. The first shot of the man on the moon, it said that, I forget where I read it, that it's not Neil Armstrong, that they forgot to take a picture of who landed on the moon first. And I think it was Buzz Aldrin that they actually got the shot of, but they said it was Armstrong instead. I think whoever landed with him got him so bad. See, that's why I don't like touching this subject, because it makes a lot of people angry. And like I said, I'm on the fence. I'm like,
Well, and a lot of people have like different technologies now, different lenses and different things where they can take their own pictures of the moon, and they're actually finding these different structures and different weird things. And I've caught some things around the moon as far as ships and such, and kind of, I don't know what they're doing. It's really weird, because you'd think they draw the energy off the sun, but they're doing some sort of energy thing off the moon in the pictures that I've captured.
When they say that there's more power in my Android phone than what first went to the moon, then I have to say, well, then by that definition, my phone should be able to go take me to the moon. So when they make analogies like that, to me that's too simplistic. Oh, there's more computer technology packed in your phone than what was in the first. Okay, then, well, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a scientist or computer guy, so my analogy could be totally off to begin with.
Yeah, you're like, to the moon, Alice. But let's play this video real quick, and then we'll get back to it.
I don't know, that's a lot of tokens. Why is my internet going so slow, stupid Battlefield 4 nerds? Oh, you're early. I didn't hear you come in. I was just learning about the wonderful things on the internet. You see, in the 1960s, we didn't have the internet. You know what else we didn't have in the 1960s, besides private HD chat rooms? Conspiracies! We just believed the horse shit the government fed us, and we chased it down with a shot of cheap brandy. Yeah. Did legendary filmmaker Stanley Kubrick, who directed such masterpieces as The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, and Dr. Strangelove, help perpetrate an Apollo 11 moon landing hoax for NASA?
I was strolling on the moon one day in a merry, merry month of December. Oh, May's a month. May, that's right.
Now, I have been watching a lot of conspiracy videos on the subject, and there is some interesting footage and information out there about similarities between the back projection used in 2001: A Space Odyssey and actual shots from the moon landing. Also, NASA did have models and mock-ups of the moon for training purposes.
Rumsfeld offered to go and negotiate personally with Stanley Kubrick. He and Henry Kissinger flew to England that same evening. Kubrick was surprised and amused by the idea, but began by refusing. Rumsfeld wouldn't give up. "We're only asking you to do one thing. Just leave us the keys to the studio for one weekend, just so we can shoot a bit of film and take a few shots. Everything will be tidied up again by Monday morning." Kissinger flattered him, telling him that Dr. Strangelove was one of Nixon's favorite films. In the end, Kubrick agreed. The fake footage would be shot in England in the MGM studios near Boreham Wood with a skeleton crew. The 2 technicians and 2 actors would be CIA agents.
Now, whether you believe in the conspiracy or not, there are some interesting parts of The Shining that I believe to be messages from Kubrick himself about his involvement. For instance, take a look at that shot of the kid playing with the fire trucks around what I believe to be a tiny NASA launch pad. Also, look at his sweater. It says Apollo 11. Interesting. Now, the boy Danny gets up and goes down the hallway to room 237, but in the book, it's room 217. What's the significance of 237, you ask? Well, the moon is 237,000 miles from Earth. You see, I believe that Danny represents the Apollo 11 mission to the moon. And him going into room 237 is the same as Kubrick going into the studio to film the moon landing.
But Stanley Kubrick was a perfectionist. Faced with the CIA crew's lack of professionalism, he ended up, against his better judgment, supervising the shooting of the fake moonwalk. "But," he told them, "from Monday morning, you're out of my life for good."
Now, when the kid comes out of the room, his Apollo 11 sweater's torn, and he has marks on his throat, and he can't speak. A metaphor for Kubrick being silenced about his involvement in the whole thing. There's also little hints sprinkled into the storeroom. There's a box that reads Box 39. Now, what was the launch pad number for the Apollo 11 mission? What was it? Let me think. 39! Also, there's Tang in there. No, not that kind of Tang. You pigs, get your mind out of the gutter. Lay off the red tube. Tang was the drink that the astronauts used to drink on space flights.
Ice cold glass of Tang. Tang is for Earthmen who just don't want to be earthbound. Drink Tang and go. Tang, the energy breakfast drink for Earthmen.
Would Richard Milhouse Nixon lie to us? Would America lie to its people just to beat the Soviet Union in a race to the moon?
Neil, you are dark on the rock. Mission is a go. We have 21 minutes.
Everything was so much easier in the 1960s. They were fantastic. Politicians were honest. Cigarettes were good for you. Hell, who needs a filter? Only pansies wore seatbelts. Martinis at lunch. Drinking and driving, no big deal. Grabbing girls' keisters by the water cooler, they loved it. In 1984, it was just a book, not a how-to manual for the NSA. What? That's un-American. What are you, some sort of commie bastard? Some kookamanny conspiracy theorist? Oh! These things will kill you. What do you guys think? Did the Apollo 11 really go to the moon? Was Kubrick even involved? Or maybe was he just a backup plan in case things went wrong? Let me know what you think in the comments below, in code. Hey, if this...
So yeah, like, there's different things going on there, but...
Yeah, I couldn't see it, obviously, but when people make presentations like that, it really irritates me, because it just makes fun of the whole frickin' subject for the serious researchers out there.
Well, yeah, there's serious points, but like his humorism or whatever, it did make me laugh. But yeah, like
I get it. You want to be kitschy and everything, but it's Kubrick could have pulled it off. He was, one of the best filmmakers out there. That's for sure.
Well, he was saying people weren't being professional enough, and so they weren't going along the lines that he wanted. But yeah, they're like, well, how does this not add up? Okay, well, the prints on the moon are different than the bottom of this Earthlander shoe. Well, they had magnetic bottoms that they'd put on the shoes, and that's not on the bottom of the boot when you see it in the museum. And there's different things that go along with it, like the waving or flapping of the flag. There's no wind on the moon, so why is that happening? Like I said, it could be the kinetic energy of the person putting the flag up and it waving after that. I mean, there's different things that could be, but then you see things in today's output of being in space and such, and people doing flips and somebody reaching over and grabbing the line of whatever like flip line he was on, and is he really in 0G, or did he just like flip on this line in some sort of 0G gravity that they have in this certain thing inside of a studio? But then there are other things that you see out the window. There's this lady, space traveler from Italy, that's in the space station, and she's showing how these window flaps work and such, and you see all this space debris flying by at the same rate of speed, but then all of a sudden you see the spacecraft like fly by and then stop and then kind of double back. So that was interesting. Is this stuff made up? Was it back in the day? Now we're there. They're still saying there's that radioactive field that you have to go through, and if you go through it, you're not going to live. So many different things that are just battling against each other. What is actually happening out there?
I don't know, but it's prompted men to make their own balloons to go as far as to prove the Earth is flat, or there's a dome covering the Earth, or whatever. People forget. The short-lived show, The Dome. I think it was a Stephen King book, but they made a show out of it. I don't know how many seasons it ran, but it was an invisible dome that covered a certain portion of a town that people couldn't get in or out. I don't know. I didn't bother watching any but maybe one or two episodes, but people think that that dome covers the Earth. Okay, well,
we do have the ozone layer, and I actually read something earlier that was like the ozone layer is finally coming back together. All the things they've been doing through NASA or Harvard, they actually had something where they're using these saline balloons to go up to a certain extent and then release these different gases, which includes diamond dust, all kinds of different things into the atmosphere. And then there's planes that are putting out these chemtrails. Supposedly for the same thing, but it's putting aluminum and all these other things into our water, into our bodies, because we're breathing it in, we're drinking it in, we're doing all these other things. Like, I don't know. Is it working, and is the means actually a good thing compared to what the ends are when they're doing these things?
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, I have to laugh. I just turned on, as you're talking, I turned on the news. There's a cannabis shortage in Arizona.
Oh, no.
I know what you're saying, but I have to wonder, though, all these things going on, like I saw in the news, they said that the cattle industry is to blame for the ozone layer. I'm sorry, that's about a little horse crap. I'm sorry, cow farts aren't destroying the ozone layer. I mean, people, they actually said this on the news. In essence, cow farts are destroying the ozone layer. I mean, can you think of a more bull? I can't say that word.
A bull fart.
Gosh,
another bull fart explanation.
So if that's true, then that mofo should be big, because cows have been around thousands of years. I mean, and people just your cows. Somebody believes that.
Well, I talked about that last night, about the methane being released, which methane is the main ingredient in cow or bull or whatever, everybody else's farts. But it's also being released from the icebergs and such when it's melting off. But then this guy, Stephen Ubaney from last night, is saying, well, when methane reaches, our atmosphere or whatever, the sun actually dissolves it. So it really isn't a factor. That was the first time I heard that. I never knew that the sun would destroy methane.
I know I can't comment on that. Like I said, I'm not an expert on methane gases or anything. But like I said, I just...
I know how to put it in a jar.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if I could save time in a bottle, well, there you go. But I saw that. I'm like, well, what are they going to say? Tell me next that the sky is green? Years ago, I heard a politician actually say, it was during one of the, I think during the second run of the presidency for Bush Jr., a guy says, we have the right to make up reality as we see fit. We tell you what reality is. I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to. So, and then they're trying to destroy what right and wrong is. They're trying to tell you this crap. Oh, there is no right or wrong. It's only what's for you. Oh, that's a load of horse crap.
Yeah, how can you even say that?
But people are buying into this ideology. And I'm sorry, but that's a, Satanistic one, sort of.
Yeah, it's like saying there's no good and bad. Like, there is. To every, thing, there's an opposite. It's just the way it is.
They push these certain agendas. Diversity, everybody's different. Oh, but conform at the same time. I mean, they don't know whether they're coming or going.
Right. Everybody's different, but we all got to be on the same test level. We're not teaching you to learn. We're teaching you to test. And so you need to know these certain things. Forget all the rest of it. Like, they're taking history and everything out of schools. Like, it's pretty crazy and ridiculous.
Yep, they're only open-minded if you agree with them now. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the sad part of it. That's what I don't. Going back to what we first started with, that's why I can't believe with the hatred towards Trump. Hey, I'm not a fan of any politician, but you don't need to be calling for his death up there publicly, Madonna. And who else? And why aren't these people brought up on charges? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
God, that's what bothers me the most. You go on there, blatantly say that you want to hurt and harm the president, and you don't have...
Back in the day, that's
that's
death offense.
They would have put you on the McCarthy hearings in the 50s for that. And, there was the Red Scare back in those days. They destroyed careers. Now it's the other way around. Now the actors and actresses are trying to destroy the careers of the politicians. And I'm sorry, these actors should just shut up and say their lines. That's my take on it. Actors.
Well, I do understand where they're coming from. Here's a Democratic guy who's now saying he's a Republican just so he can be in for the vote. He's totally changed parties. He used to talk trash about Republicans back in the day. You can watch videos on YouTube about it. And there's so many things about him that it's just lie after lie after lie. And, like you're saying, back in the day, people saying certain things, like they'd arrest you, they put you in prison, put you up for death charges for threatening the life of the president. But here we're talking about people in the public eye. Well, Trump, on his show, he's basically a celebrity in the public eye, and he's being, voted in as president. He's being something that he's not, and now he's saying all these things and doing all these other things, and people are enraged because there's a lot of stuff going on, and he just can't stop twittering. He keeps putting these tweets out there and stuff, and, I'm like, how come outrage?
But where was the outrage when all these other politicians were doing way worse things? That's what I want to know. Where were you? They were sleeping. They didn't care. They were too busy laughing. And then you want to call Trump a Nazi? Oh, boy, you don't know what a Nazi is. That's what upsets me. But,
it's probably because he's, always talking to Putin. Instead of going over here and doing this, he's over talking to Putin again, which I'm wondering what the issue is there. Why do we need to talk to him again? It's very few and far between that we go to other countries and visit with certain heads of state or countries.
See, America, you want world peace, but yet you're pissed off because you're talking to the enemy. I mean, Jesus, people, what do you want? You want world peace or do you want war? Come on. they were after Kennedy for the same thing, wanting to make peace with Khrushchev and not do the whole Bay of Pigs
Well, the
thing,
Russians feel the same way about it. They're tagging buildings and they have this picture of Putin and Trump making out. Like, they kind of feel the same way. Like, their relationship is closer than it should be. But like you're saying, we're working for world peace, which really freaked me out when he's sitting here calling an mentally stable Korean dictator certain names and, abolishing his reputation and disrespecting him and such. Like, that's a killing offense over there. And I'm like, oh my God, we're going to die. Like, they're going to send the nukes over, but they haven't got that cut and polished as far as making it work. Then they finally were able to reach a certain extent, and then they made peace all of a sudden. But yeah, it's just, the world is a crazy place these days, you must admit, and there's so many different things happening, and like you were saying, shootings and such, and people are like, is the government behind this? I think it's just people going off the deck, going cooking for Cocoa Puffs, and they can't really handle this realm anymore, and we're subjected to violence on TV and violence in video games and such. Well, their resolution is violence, so they're going to go out, not only hurt the person that hurt them, they're going to hurt everybody else that represents that person.
I think it's a combination of both. I think it's, sleepers, if you want to call them that.
Mm-hmm.
And people who, like I mentioned earlier, Katie Groves, who, listen, I implore people to listen to her story because she, seems very genuine and she goes through it. And if like I said, people want to, delve into that sort of subject matter and get the story from the horse's mouth. Like I said, choose to believe it or not. I'm still going through her testimony as it stands, but it's just, you're going to have, with the advent of the internet, you are going to have some of these people who have been in these programs, who have escaped, come out, and their only refuge is coming out in public to kind of protect themselves, I suppose. So why wouldn't people believe that if they're researching subject matter? That's all.
Cut. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much going on out there, and like you were saying earlier, like, you haven't seen the country so divided. Like, and I was telling that to a friend this last summer when we went to save him from Salt Lake City. Basically, he was a little past that, but I've never seen the country so divided since Vietnam, and people have said in the past, people divided are easily conquered, and so that's what they're trying to do. And look at this on the TV or look at this on the internet instead of looking all this other stuff that's really happening in our world. They're just really good at what they're doing it in the educational system for our kids because they are our future generation. They're dumbing us down one at a time, generation by generation, and putting all these different technologies out to keep us unaware of what's going on around us. It's kind of crazy, scary situation, but it is the world we live in today.
Yeah, unfortunately.
We are at the end of our time.
Oh.
So did you have a way for people to contact you or reach out to you if they had anything to say or ask or whatnot?
Yeah, I'll spell my email since it's okay. Shemya case file. SHEMYACASEFILE at Outlook.com.
Can you say that again? I think the music was a little loud, even though it's on auto-ducting and it should cut out. I think you're a little soft-spoken.
Shemya case file at Outlook.com. There you go. They can hit rewind.
Yeah. And what was the preface to the Outlook.com?
Shemya, like Shemya Air Force Base. SHEMYA.
Sounds like a plan. Well, thanks so much, Jason, for coming out tonight. It was great having you on the show, and I know certain ones of these topics you're not very keen on, but it was great talking about the other things with you and mulling over some things.
Well, thank you for having me.
And thank you to everyone in Spaced Out Radio, Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, Deep Talk Radio, and wherever else in the universe you're listening tonight. I had a wonderful time this evening, and it was my pleasure, literally and figuratively, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend on spacedoutradio.com. Until next time, nighty night, love and light to all my space cases out there. Don't forget, we are all in this together, and together we can make the world a little better. And together, my friends, we own the night. You guys come on to the after party, 970-335-9596. Take care of my use.